5:31. Some announcements before we get started. Call for volunteers still. There's a complete list of openings on the town website. On the homepage, there's a volunteer tab where you can see what committees and boards have openings. Secondly, a huge thank you to DPW, Water Department, and Public Safety for all their work and response during recent storms. There were many long nights and early mornings for them. We really appreciate it. Select Board Chair office hours, I'm going to hold those again this Saturday. There is one slot left at 9:30 if anybody's interested in coming in and talking. If you can't make it this weekend and you're interested, please just send me an email so that I can gauge whether, how soon to hold this again. As long as people are interested, I'm willing to meet. So. And then finally, there's a Greenbelt event with American Farmland Trust and Mass Farm Bureau. That's Wednesday, March 4th. It's planning for the future of your farm. So this is geared towards all farmers. They are already asking for advanced registration. And so in the select board packet, there's a flyer that gives information on how to register. And this is at the Topsfield Fairgrounds in the evening at 6. So the first item of business is public comment. Anybody wishing to make a public comment about a topic not on the agenda is welcome to do so at this point. Okay. Item B, town manager updates.
Thank you. First item, I briefed the board by email last week when this had taken place, but just to share this within the meeting, there was a burst pipe at the Page School outside the gymnasium last Tuesday because of the coal. And Chief Dwyer and both fire and police and Brian and Jonathan Seymour were all right there. So they were able to contain it. It had to empty because it was one of the sprinkler heads that had frozen and burst. So the water was really within the foyer, kind of outside the gymnasium and the entrance. So they were able to basically squeegee the water out into the parking lot and kind of, minimize the impact. But obviously there was some water that got in and got onto the brand new gym floor.
That's wonderful.
It was just rebuilt this summer. So we notified insurance right away. We have taken the step toward filing a claim. The adjuster was out last week meeting on site with Brian and Jonathan. And once they get back with their assessment of the damage, we'll make a decision as to whether to file a claim. We do have a $10,000 deductible with that policy for that building. So it seems probable that the right thing to do is going to be to replace the floor, but we haven't made that decision yet.
Is there visible damage to the floor?
I haven't been over there, but Jonathan told me you could see some, what he referred to as cupping in the floor. So,
so it's underneath the floor, probably. The water. Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. But I think the good news is, staff got right on top of it, and it could have been a lot worse, but it's part of the, part of the paid schools.
Yeah.
But my question is this indicative of, is it old piping that was the cause of it? Are we gonna be seeing more of these things?
Yeah, did you see the elbow in the photograph?
Yeah, you really, if it froze, it shattered because of that, or is it just old and fatigued and every time we get colder?
Well, this is a new part of, this is the relatively new part of the building where the gym was added, from when the gym was added in roughly 2011.
I didn't know where the pipe burst was, that the water came through there. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I took detailed notes on my call with Jonathan. Those are back on my computer, but he described to me, basically there was a issue of maybe there wasn't enough breathability, something between the ceiling and the drop ceiling and where the actual line was, something about ventilation. I took notes when we spoke, but he and Brian are really the point people on that. So, but that's a good question as to whether there's anything that can be done to.
I just remember in the high school, middle school, we were getting ready for a project and had the SOI and then mess with water and things like that. If we anticipate more with the new section, the answer is not yet.
Right.
That's kind of good news, bad news.
So was school not being held that day? It was Tuesday, right?
It was the snow day.
Oh.
It
okay.
took place on the Tuesday,
Got it.
which was they were closed for the
Yeah.
snow. So they were able to, come back the Wednesday, which was when they normally opened, after the storm. And, the gym is back in use. It wasn't taken out of service, so they are still using it. Next item, I had sent around the packet, for the FinCom meeting that took place last Wednesday. That was, they met previously a couple of times in the late 2025 to talk about capital items and the capital program broadly. Last Wednesday's meeting was the first time that they had all the capital article requests in front of them. That's the 13 articles that are part of the packet that you all have in front of you for tonight's meeting. So I just wanted to really make you aware that meeting took place. It went very, very well. We had all of the project sponsors were present. Jonathan Seymour wasn't able to be there, but the only paid school project was the windows, and he had met with, me, Brian, and Caitlin actually a couple of times on that. So we were very, we were able to speak to that. And the purpose of FinCom's meeting last week was not to vote recommendations. It was really to kick the tires and kind of hear from all the sponsors. They had all the FinCom had all the materials in front of them, so they would ask questions. I think it was a very, very good meeting, very good kickoff to that process, so that when we get to their review of those articles to actually vote recommendations, they've already, chewed on it. And they had also, at their December meeting, the FinCom had designated a member to be the kind of liaison with each of the departments. And they had gone out and, for the most part, they've been out, met with the departments, gone and looked at the vehicles and the sites. Chris and I were part of public safety. I think, I know there were others at Page and so forth. So I think that's off to a really good start.
I was there too.
Yep.
The
The FinCom meeting, right? Yeah.
They actually did a reasonably deep dive on the articles.
They did.
They've got a lot of background information already gathered, did a great job. I thought it was really good.
I thought it was,
Starting meeting.
I thought so too. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, commend staff who put together the articles. I think it's good the way with the new bylaw. It says that the article requests are due 3 months prior to the special or to the town meeting. So that had them coming in on, I had to get them circulated to the FinCom no later than 26th. So I had set a deadline for departments of the 23rd. In practice, I had gotten a number of them prior to that, but there were some that kind of came down to the end. And I had sent out the packet to FinCom on Saturday, the 24th. So they had a good 4 days to review the materials. And I think that staggering of the capital articles being a couple of weeks ahead of the overall articles deadline works well, because it allows some additional, breathing room to focus on those before the overall warrant closes, presumably later tonight. Next item is just recent meetings with Pentucket town staff and GNAP architects regarding the preparation of the statement of interest for Page School, which is expected to be filed in April. The deadline's April 17th. As you know, that'll be a SOI will be submitted by the school district, not by the town. So obviously there's a lot of coordination on the division of labor between Jonathan and his team, and myself, Brian, and Caitlin are kind of the core team on the town side. And then obviously we have GNAP as a very valuable resource, because the town meeting voters had appropriated some funds at the fall town meeting to engage them for not a lot of money, but it should be enough that they're able to help as needed. A lot of the work that goes into the SOI is in terms of the current building conditions is going to come right from the conditions assessment, which they already did. We've had a productive meeting, and we've also had a couple of meetings in the last 2 weeks on just continuing work on the Page capital program. That's a reference to the capital planning, basically taking the GNAP conditions assessment projects and making sure that we're sequencing those properly, understanding that some number of those projects may never happen, depending on what direction the town decides to go and MSBA goes with the long-term plan for Page School, but we met last week, and then we had some follow-up questions that we thought would benefit from Sam's input. So Brian and I met with Sam on Tuesday to get his advice on which, if any, of the projects in the report he felt should be, more front burner because of code compliance issues. So that'll all be reflected in the capital program that's presented a week from tonight.
Can we just go back a minute to the insurance claim on the floor?
Yep.
Who is responsible for the deductible? If it's 10,000, that's right at the cutoff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that would be the town, because the overall cost is gonna be greater than 10, I expect, and we're the ones who insure the building. So, yeah, we do, many years ago, the town, prior to my starting here, they had set up there's a fund in the general ledger for insurance deductibles. They had set that up long before I started, so $10,000 is a lot. Typically, our deductibles are more in the 500 or 1,000 range. But when we have had insurance deductibles over the years, we've been able to pay them out of that fund. So I haven't looked at that balance recently. I'm sure it's over 10, but it's probably not 20. So I don't know how far we want to draw that down. But once we have a decision on whether to file a claim, if we needed to, I think we could probably absorb the deductible, but if we needed to go to FinCom for a reserve fund transfer for some portion of that, we could.
Okay, thanks.
Next item, the planning board, planning department work plan on the comp plan, visioning, scope, and procurement. As you know, we've been tracking this pretty closely for the last few months, and we've had some questions coming out of some recent staff meetings as to what direction that was going. So I met on Monday with the planning board chair, Ann Mardine. She had a proposal she had intended to float with the planning board the following evening, which made a lot of sense to me. And I'm told that it was very well received by the planning board. I know, Wendy, I believe you both were at the meeting, so and I see Ann's on the call as well. But basically, they're going, I think, in a good direction to get MVPC under contract to manage the visioning phase of the comp planning process. So that offers a lot of benefits, including because they're exempt from procurement, it would allow a contract to be signed sooner and get the work underway. And ideally, if there's significant progress being made, that the idea all along of this two-step process with the visioning and then the comp plan is to position the town to compete for a one-stop grant, and which could fund the balance of the comp plan costs. And the one-stop grant applications due June 2nd. So, we'll see. I mean, we don't want to push that process any faster than it ought to go. But Ann and I both agreed that there's no expectation or intent that the visioning process would be complete by June 2nd. The goal would be to have the vendor under contract and have it substantially along enough that in the grant application of the state, we're able to say we're in the midst of the process. We've got kind of we're within sight. She and I both felt like ending the visioning process by around like late summer would be a good timeline, like a comfortable timeline. And that would also, I would think, stand up well on a grant application, because they wouldn't be announcing their grant awards till that time frame anyway. So I think that's the direction that I didn't go to Tuesday night's planning board meeting, but I think that's the direction that came out of that.
Okay.
I think it's a great way to go. I mean, Merrimack Valley already has so much institutional knowledge about the town and so many plans and reports. They're gonna get such a jump on the start. I think it's really good.
I did speak with Gerard yesterday morning. There was a separate mayors and managers meeting yesterday morning at MVPC, so I was able to talk to him a little bit ahead of that, and of course they'd be very excited to help us with that.
Mm-hmm. And so will the governance section be part of the visioning, or is that more part of the
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the items I talked with Ann about, is one of the items that my office and the select board would very much want to be sure is part of the overall comp plan. And the most important part of the visioning phase is to make sure that the larger comp plan is scoped properly. So if, for instance, the community's intent and expectation is that the comp plan is going to include a robust process on governance, form of government, possibly looking at, should we be going toward a town charter? That those types of things really will benefit from, and in fact require, a dedicated working group, a dedicated process. I would expect is probably one of how a lot of towns do it with comp plans is there's, let's say 10 different chapters, transportation, housing, so on and so forth. They often have like subcommittees or working groups organized around each of those chapters. And the way they did it in Westford was there was a whole chapter on governance, and it was a very helpful section of that comp plan. And they've had a whole, there's a whole kind of interdepartmental working group just on that chapter. So I know we would, your board and my office would envision something similar here. And that's exactly the kind of thing I think is important to highlight at the visioning stage, because that's not necessarily part of every comp plan. It's not part of one of the required elements by state statute. So if it's going to be, if the intent is that the prospective vendors are coming and carrying some budget for that, we need to be clear on the front end of that's the town's expectation. Next item, this came out of some discussions this fall, but we did finalize the signage for Mill Pond and Pipe Stave to better communicate the new share screen, the amendments to the dog bylaw with regard to leashing and no more than 2 unleashed dogs. So this that I've got up on the screen is, I sent this over to DPW about a month ago. They sent it off to their sign fabricator, and they have since received the signs. They haven't installed the signs, obviously because of the weather, but once the ground's not frozen, Butch is going to send his crew out to install the signs. We also have a flyer that's substantially similar to this, that has a reverse side that has a map of Pipe Stave and Mill Pond. It shows the areas where dogs have to be leashed under the Mill Pond management plan. And so we printed, a bunch of copies of that. Those are now given out with the dog licenses, and we'll do that going forward, make those available at the library and so forth. So that's all in the interest of just, better communicating to dog owners what the applicable rules are.
I mean, has there been any response from dog owners picking up their dog lessons?
I haven't heard. Okay.
Next item on the Whittier Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, we had a meeting yesterday morning. I think went very well. And a big focus was talking about the cost apportionment, both operating cost and capital costs. There's 9 other regional agreements that we've gathered and kind of created a matrix to illustrate how different districts do it. And, I think what started over this process, there's been a ton of information, but it's not necessarily been distilled. So I think doing that and kind of synthesizing that into a cohesive form, one of my takeaways, and Chris, you can share your thoughts as well. There's a lot more commonality than I think people understood. Once you see it in the matrix, they're like, oh my gosh, like 6 of the districts are all doing it substantially similar. It becomes clear what an outlier Whittier is, which we knew anecdotally, but it's now much more like.
How do the other districts do it?
Well, it's a range, but a lot of them on the capital cost, or I'm sorry, on the operating cost is pretty typical by enrollment, but on the capital cost, there's a range of methods. But they tend to take into account both enrollment as well as school age population in some formula. But one example, for instance, one of the other vocational schools, I think it was South Shore, I can't remember, but it was one that was a grade 9 to 12. It was based on the student population from grade 9 to 12, whereas ours is grade
Yeah.
K to 12.
Like a 5-year rolling average.
Yeah, the other point, yeah, some had a 5-year rolling average, some had a designated minimum. So if, for instance, it was based on enrollment, it had, so let's say, let's say there were 4 towns in the district, and let's say one of the towns only had 2 students that year, there'd be a minimum of 5. So even if, so like it's based on enrollment, but with some minimum for each. Of all of them, Minuteman was the most convoluted. I hope we don't go in that direction. That had like
Then we gave it sorted out, so.
yeah, that was like 1% equal with all of them, and then 49% based on this and 50% based on that. And it was kind of hard to summarize that one, but I think it was a very good meeting. We had just about every member and alternate there. I think it was the best. There were a few people missing, but Merrimack was missing, but it was really good attendance, and I thought everyone was really engaged in the discussion. And one of the more interesting discussions, which we'll have to face here too, is the timing to bring forward amendments to the regional agreement. That's going to need to be done by the end of fiscal 27 to meet the requirements of the MSBA. But we're not going to know what the costs of the new project are then, or anywhere near it. It's going to be quite a ways after that. So that was one of the discussions we had, is do people feel that their communities and their town meetings would be willing to entertain a vote on method of apportionment when they don't know what the dollar. So what we're doing, we're building a financial model to illustrate what the cost would be based on different types of apportionment. And we'll run different scenarios, so it will be an informed discussion, but it will be based on hypotheticals in terms of the numbers. So, I think, at the beginning of the discussion, there were some who I think were really like, we need to know the cost first, but as we talk it through, it's like, you're not going to know the cost. So we set out a process. I think there was more realism that resulted from the discussion, but that's just the group at that table.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a learning curve issue for every one of the cities and towns.
So is the target town meeting at the next May?
Yeah.
Or next April?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's worthwhile to try it in the fall and get information about what the sticking points are. If you wait till next spring and it doesn't pass.
Right, no, and that's,
11 communities.
Yeah.
yeah, we did talk, it was on the agenda for yesterday's meeting to talk about doing a substantial update at this spring's town meeting cycle, so that voters are aware that this is actively going on. There's active meetings, how they can get engaged, how they can learn more, and to do that in a cohesive way among the 11 cities and towns, so that there's some commonality to the updates, and everyone agreed that was a good idea. I had floated the idea of whether and we'll talk about this later tonight with the warrant, whether there's any benefit to a potential non-binding resolution this cycle, for exactly the reason you said. No one, myself included, has come up with like what that would be exactly. So right now that seems to be kind of petering out, but if you guys think of us, something that could be put to the voters as more of like a trial balloon, that's something that, we could.
Well, maybe in the fall.
Or
maybe
in the
our-
fall. Yeah,
I think more of a presentation rather than
yeah,
I think the problem, and that group seems to understand it pretty well, is it's probably gonna be very difficult to get all 11 communities in agreement. So we're gonna take this as far as we can within the groups until there's a clear direction that there's resistance. And then it will more than likely have to have legislative action. So I think people are pretty comfortable with that, and there is some pretty strong resistance from,
Certain towns.
yeah, so.
next item, the Affordable Housing Trust met last night, and Wendy and I were there, and there was a briefing on the kind of update on a feasibility study that Mass Housing Partnership is overseeing with a vendor that they've engaged. So nothing was shared in terms of drawings, but there was Wendy and I had a Zoom meeting with them earlier this week to get briefed on that. And so we shared that information with the Affordable Housing Trust and a number of residents who were present. So I don't know how much you want to go into that, but it's
ongoing.
It's ongoing. Yeah, it's going to be a subject of continuing meetings, and it's going to be, you know, I think it'll be a little ways before there's anything tangible to respond to, because we're giving feedback to Mass Housing Partnership to make sure they know the town's expectations and make sure hopefully when their report is received, it is something that is responsive to what we expect.
Just relative to home.
No, property,
Okay.
yeah.
Because it was speaking kind of cryptically.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that, yeah. And then finally, just some other updates. We did receive the draft financials from the auditor in the last few days. Jenny's out this week, so it'll be next week before we can get any review of that, but we're closing in on finalizing the FY 25 audit. Our books have been closed for months. The issue there, as it is every year, is the Essex Regional. Takes a while to close their books, but they did, and so we did receive the draft financials. Once we have the audit complete, we'll obviously schedule a presentation of the board. We had the Pentucket finance meeting earlier this week, or no, we have one this coming Monday, and they just released their budget book. We just got a copy today, and so we'll meet on Monday with Justin and my counterparts in Groveland and Merrimack to talk about that. And they've got their a meeting coming up on the 24th, public hearing on their budget. I also have a shared meeting Monday on the Whittier Tech with the chair of the school committee and the school building committee. And two more items. On the Newbury Port dam project that they're working on, there was the ownership question on that piece of land. I shipped all that off to the city and to their consultant and said, this is your question to answer. So they acknowledge receipt, and hopefully they can get an answer to the question. I advised them, I suspect it will involve a title attorney to get a conclusive answer. And then finally, we did receive notice today that we received the Maya Wellness Grant that you guys have approved a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, thanks, Angus. Move on to action items. Item A is going to be continued or deferred until next week potentially. Same with item B. This is a request for special event permit approvals. There's some missing information which we'll work with the applicants and town clerk's office to gather. Item C, a request for designation of a proposed US bicycle route. And I see we have Carrie here, right?
Yep. Can you hear me?
How are you?
Good.
So do you want to set the stage for what this is and what you're looking for?
Yeah. So just quickly, there's a national network of bicycle routes designated by state DOTs, sanctioned by the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, AASHTO. AASHTO also regulates federal highway numbers and the interstate highway system. It's the membership organization of all the state DOTs. So I'm with the Adventure Cycling Association. We're a national nonprofit organization. Our mission is to inspire, empower, and connect people to travel by bicycle. So we've been working with AASHTO and state DOTs across the country to designate U.S. bicycle routes. These are long distance bicycle routes cross state and cross country. There's currently 24,000 miles of U.S. bike routes designated in the country, including 100 or so miles already designated in Massachusetts. And we're seeking to designate, as shown on the map there, U.S. Bicycle Route 1 along the eastern side of Massachusetts, connecting the existing U.S. Bike Route 1 in New Hampshire and Maine with Rhode Island. And then eventually U.S. Bike Route 1 also exists in Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. So it will eventually connect Bar Harbor, Maine to Key West. In order to designate a U.S. each of the pavement owners, so this is trails, streets, roads, each of the pavement owners needs to tell so no costs, no engineering requirements, no design requirements, no maintenance requirements. Signage is desirable but not required. So basically what this designation does is it puts this route on the map, so to speak, and people who want to do long distance bicycle travel can then find that map through the state DOT website or through the adventure cycling website and plan their route accordingly. So bicycle travelers spend about $150, $200 a day. So when you're on a US bicycle route, your small campground, small motel, restaurant, bike shop, etc., they recognize the added value of being on a recognized route. So what the request here is for West Newbury is to support the use of Plummer Spring Road for the US bike route. And I'll address a key issue right off the bat, and that is that the bridge is out. So we've talked with MassDOT about this. The plan, as I understand it, on the part of West Newbury is to repair that bridge. And MassDOT is saying they would like the route designated on the road that it's going to be on, as opposed to temporarily designating it on the equivalent of a detour. I have discussed with Rebecca the possibility of a detour. We talked about some specific roads that would go around the bridge while it's out. On the current timeline, this route would be designated probably in the fall of this year. And as I believe, the hope is that the bridge will be repaired by the end of this year. So there might not even be an issue there. But the proposal is to designate it on excuse me, on Plummer Spring Road. And if when the route gets designated, the bridge is still not completed, we can put some tags on our map that basically describe the detour that will be in place, would be in place until the bridge is completed. So I think that covers all the issues. Are there any questions? I'm sure there must be.
So just one point, that the name of the road changes to Middle Street once it goes into West Newbury.
Okay.
So, Plummer Spring Road is on the Newburyport side, so just for your information.
Yeah, well, you can thank Google Maps for not telling me that.
Oh, yeah. Fair
And
enough.
I'm sure you're aware of those kinds of issues.
Yeah. Did you have questions, Chris?
No, it was that, and number two, I was gonna say, if we approve it, you approve it on Middle Street, and the bridge will be completed in the time frame. So I don't.
Yeah, I think
Any detours would be kind of unnecessary, I hope.
Yeah.
Other question, there's already something that runs through town on the same route, like the East Coast Greenway.
Yes. Yeah, that was before the board, what, a year and a half ago?
Before I was on,
Oh, was that long ago?
3 or 4 years ago, yeah. I didn't know if there's any connection.
part of that is redundant with this, isn't it, Carrie?
It's the same route, yeah.
Yeah, so we've used the East Coast Greenway as the template for this since it's been in place for quite a while, and this will basically be a dual recognition. The East Coast Greenway is a mapping project, and so they don't actually need local agency approvals in order to do it. It's good that they've reached out to you. But in order to do a US bike route, you absolutely need local agency approvals because it's the designation is done through the DOT.
Okay.
Well, they also, I think they got permission from the select board, because they put signage up at fairly regular intervals.
That's
Yes,
right.
they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you have additional signage?
If there's signage now, signage is a completely separate project, and there'd have to obviously be funding and local agreement to do the signage and figure out how to do it. If it's already signed as the East Coast Greenway, what has been done in other locations like with the Mississippi River Trail in Wisconsin and Minnesota, since they already had signing in place for the Mississippi River Trail, they just added an occasional US Bike Route 45 shield to go to recognize that it's both the Mississippi River Trail and the US Bike Route 45. So in this case, if there's already East Coast Greenway signage in place, you could add an occasional US Bike Route 1 shield, and that is an official sign that's in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. But you could just do that as a lower, since the East Coast Greenway signs would be providing wayfinding and directions, the addition of the US Bike Route 1 would just be an added publicity, so to speak.
Okay. Do you have any sense from other places in the country where this has been done, how much it increases the cycling traffic?
It varies widely. In some cases, particularly in this one, since it's already the East Coast Greenway, there will be some added traffic because of a different route, if you will, for people to find the map that they want to use. But the increase probably will not be large. That said, we don't have statistics, so and you can find this issue all across the country. Occasionally, people will put up counters on trails and whatnot to find out what that local usage is. But in order to figure out whether bicycle travelers were using this road, you'd have to be out there with a clipboard and noting the difference between your many, 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 many local riders and that occasional person who comes through with hauling a trailer with their stuff in it or with packs on the bike. But just as an example, that's really, I want to be clear, pulled a little bit out of thin air, but if 2,000 additional people did this route in a year as a result of it being designated a US bike route, that'd be roughly 10 a day. And many of them, since the route across Massachusetts is about 125 miles, many of them would take 2 to 3 days to do that. And so where they might stop and so on, question. But in terms of added traffic, 10 a day compared to, I'm sure, excess of 100 that are already, again, your local riders using these routes. That's kind of the numbers you might see, but don't have, and there aren't the kind of numbers where people could say, oh yeah, we know how many people are going to do this, and we've got a lot of data that supports that. The only data we have is Adventure Cycling sells maps, and on some of our really big routes that are really popular, cross-country routes and so on, there's 2,000 to 4,000 people a year who do that. And following the Atlantic coast is a bucket list ride for a bunch of people too.
Very briefly on the bridge, I know, Carrie, that Rebecca had communicated this to you, but as she said, there is every expectation that the bridge is going to be complete this May or June, but we just clear that by contract, the builder has till November of 2026. So it will be complete no later than November. It's fully expected to be complete 6 months ahead of that. But just, we want to be very clear that contractually, it could be as late as November.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, it's great. It's been years in the making, so.
Yeah, and again, we have 35 jurisdictions to herd cats to get all their approvals, and the deadline for the spring submissions is next month, so we're not going to get that done. So it's going to be a fall designation.
Okay. Well, we have the template letter that you provided. You can just put that on letterhead. Chris, do you want to make a motion, or do you have any more questions?
No, I'm trying to think if there's any downside to anything we're missing. This is new to me, so.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
I have no problem with it, so I'll make a motion to support the US Bike Route #1 designation through West Newbury on Middle Street and up Plymouth Spring Road, and to put together 2 letters in support of as he requests.
Okay, second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. We'll try to get that out in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks a lot, Rebecca. I will keep in touch.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
sure. Next item is a request to add the Kimball Park walkway project to the town work plan. I think I saw Doug Mead.
Yep, he's on. Yep.
Hey, Doug.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks for being flexible with me and getting me in on via Zoom. I appreciate it. If you hear Mickey in the background, I'm just chasing him around while we kind of wind down for the evening. Yeah, I just
Not your child.
It is a child.
Chasing your child?
He's very fast.
Oh, boy.
he's he's full of energy. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly get before you guys kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit with doing the CPC application for a pathway project that we want to do at the at Kimball Park to connect the parking lot up by the snack shack down to the new side of the pickleball court. That also kind of helps connect Action Cove to like overflow parking as well. And all that kind of came up during the site plan review with the planning board during the pickleball court stuff. So we just wanted to get on the town work plan with that and get things moving there.
Okay. I'm pretty familiar with this from CPC. Chris, do you have any questions?
I'm slightly familiar from the FinCom meeting of last week.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I guess my only comment would be, they did put the cart before the horse. But I think at a certain point in time, what the Parks and Rec has to do is they need to do an overall study of the park itself. Once they started sliding the pickleball court in, there was lots of other questions about the functions and uses of the space. I know the planning board had issues with it. You know, I wouldn't have a problem with the pathway because it's a very easy item to remove at a certain point, but I hope some point going forward, they'll take a look at the parcel as a complete entity, how it moves forward suiting the town's needs.
Mhm. Doug, do you want to respond to that?
In terms of like, Chris, are you like saying like you want us to have like a master plan or something like that?
Master plan seems a little too heavy of a, but I mean, there's just so many things that go on there, some potential things that people talk about. I just think the site needs a comprehensive plan, but yeah.
So initially, the Park and Rec Commission was looking at a comprehensive plan before this, but then through discussing, realized that no matter what else they did with the site, that path would still make sense. Is that fair, Doug?
Yeah, it's definitely fair. And we felt that like a master plan, like you said, Chris, is like a little too intense. Like it's pretty developed. Like it's not going to change. Like we as the current commission, we do not feel that there would be any massive changes to that site. The ball fields are the ball fields. The snack shack's the snack shack. Action Cove is Action Cove. Yes, we do want to do an Action Cove replacement in the next 2 to 3 years. And we want to do that doing a community build and having
you've closed the video.
having a lot of community involvement, and that's a whole other animal that I know that we all need to kind of meet about, but we feel like the site's the site. And to piggyback on what Wendy just said, like we feel as though that if there were any changes in the future in the next 3 to 5 years, that this pathway, it's a stone dust pathway. It's to just kind of tie some things together. It just kind of makes sense, regardless of what happens.
I don't oppose the pathway, I just think you should have a vision going forward on it. You say the space is the space, but it's been evolving over the last 10 or 15 years even. I mean, it used to be girls softball, that got moved to Page, that took over, batting cages have been put in. The pickleball, now a path. I just think an overall view would be a prudent thing. I'm not gonna oppose this, it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So Doug, in terms of schedule, so you're anticipating or hoping for approval at Springtown meeting, so construction would start in the fall or summer?
Can I jump in on that, Doug?
Sure.
We talked at the FinCom meeting that they have a price from the current contractor on site. So if this can get on the special town meeting warrant, it would be advantageous because where he's already established on site, he doesn't have to redo that. So his cost was fairly attractive. So at a special town meeting, he could probably get going very quickly after the town meeting.
Okay, so in summer.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
even spring. So, yeah.
So one of the things that we look at, Doug, before we add our project to the work plan is when on the work plan it should be. So it sounds like this should be immediate between now and June. right, would be the immediate timeframe.
Yeah,
would
just
think
given
Yeah.
like that, the contractor's there. We have a quote from that contractor. I understand that it needs to go up to bid regardless, but yeah, it could move kind of quickly.
Okay,
Yeah, so if we took the approach Chris is suggesting, which I agree makes a lot of sense, the idea would be to actually put it out to bid prior to the appropriation of funds. The bid documents would specify that any award of contract would of course be subject to appropriation, but that way the town would have multiple quotes prior to the town meeting vote, and if town meeting did appropriate the funds, it would be in a position to award the contract soon thereafter. And if it did end up being the contractor who's already mobilized and may reasonably be able to offer a competitive price for that reason, they could potentially. I met with Butch on this a number of times. Doug and I have met with Butch, and I think the procurement wouldn't be a big lift for Caitlin, and if the project is funded, it wouldn't be, we don't think it'd be a big management issue because it's pretty clear scope that the commission has laid out in terms of where the path will go.
We're gonna have change orders on the bridge, they're gonna be multiple bigger than this.
okay, anything else? Bruce?
The motion?
Yes.
Make a motion to endorse putting the Kimball Park walkway on the town work plan on the immediate timeframe.
All right, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, thanks, Doug.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, the next item is consideration for potentially revising the contribution rates for retirees' health insurance. You see, we have several retirees here. Appreciate you being here. How do you want to start this?
I spoke to Angus a little today. I mean, we got the numbers from the actuary back and I'm still slightly confused, but my bigger thought was, is this something that a select board should be deciding? It should be a town meeting. I guess my preference would be to have a warrant article if that's how it's done, or whether we just have it as the line item increase and we discuss it at that point. But I think it's probably appropriate to let the voters, because over the course of time, it's over $1 million.
So I think it's worthwhile for people that haven't been following this, maybe just to clarify that, there's the actual annual cost, which is 8,000, I think, the first year, or in that range.
Increase?
It's,
But
well,
that's not including the OPEB and all of that other stuff.
correct,
There's
yeah.
two different kind of cost factors.
Right,
to
right.
evaluate.
Anywhere.
I thought that was my recollection. Maybe.
Well, she's talking a 5% increase.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I'm just saying incrementally,
okay, in my head, I'm over at 50 to 65 because the current employees are getting 55.
Oh, if you bring it. 60.
Yeah. That's more like 22,000.
So the research that your office did, Angus, about bringing it to town meeting, or is it ballot vote? What is the appropriate?
So, yeah, we've done a fair amount of research on this. So there is Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 9E, which, if adopted as a local MGL, if that was adopted by town meeting, it would confer upon the select board the authority to increase the rate. The town has not, to the best of our knowledge, has not adopted that MGL. There was a vote taken in 1965 to vote to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 30B. That's all we have. Max has been through the archives. He can't find, and he'll keep looking, but he said he's looked everywhere. So he's going to check with the Secretary of State's office as well, because I don't know if they would have a copy. This was a ballot vote in 1965, not a town meeting vote. He hadn't been able to find the exact language. All I have on a list of MGLs that Mike McCarron used to maintain of what the town has adopted, it simply says 32B. Well, 32B is a long statute with a lot of sections and subsections. So was Section 9E part of the law in 1965? I don't know. And so we need to know exactly what that says. So it's possible if in 1965, 32B Section 9E was approved by the ballot, then it may be the select board has that authority. If it wasn't, then that would be, the statute 9E says that a town can provide for payment of a subsidiary or additional rate above the 50% minimum by vote of the town, or if a majority of the votes cast in answer to the following question, which will be printed on the official ballot, and it goes on to say, shall the town, in addition to the payment of 50% of the premium for contributory group life, hospital, surgical, et cetera, pay a subsidiary or additional rate. So the reference in the statute to by a vote of the town is customarily means town meeting, but it also says or a majority of ballots cast to the ballot or votes cast to the ballot. So there's one other vote in our records that I think is relevant. In May of 1988, there was another referendum question that was a townwide ballot, and that did pass here in West Newbury, and that said, shall the town pay 1/2 the premium cost payable by a retired employee for group life insurance and for group general or blanket hospital, surgical, medical, dental, and other health insurance as offered under plans then available to town employees. So that passed, and that specified 50%. So that would suggest that if there was going to be an increase to that, it would need another ballot vote, but we haven't referred that to town council. But if that's the direction the select board wants to go policy-wise, our next step would be to work with town clerk and with town council to sketch out what process that would be.
So does that mean that the select board cannot vote to increase it without?
Well, you could set a policy direction to do that, but whether you can actually increase it without adopting this MGL was something that it appears not.
Madam Chairperson,
Yeah,
I have something to add to that.
okay, just thinking on. Okay. So Chris, are you just saying as a matter of like good governing, it would make more sense for the town as a whole to decide on this, or are you talking about specifically what Angus is mentioning about MGL?
I don't know the Mass General.
Yeah.
I expressed my concern to spend basically two of us, because Russ isn't even here, to spend $1 million of the town's money, not know how the taxpayers would respond to that. I think it's fair to let a presentation at town meeting, if that's where it is, and then gets voted whether it's a town meeting or the ballot.
And by $1 million, can you explain?
That's what it is over the time, the cost implication, they have the matrix there. If you go from 50% to 65, the total cost says it's $1,083,000. And we asked the question at the last meeting, because I didn't understand what that meant. They said that's the total encumbrance that would be on your insurance. And they then referenced back that the last person on the plan would be roughly done in 100 years.
Okay.
So I don't. There's another chart in here with a breakdown of each year, and it starts out in the first year. This is where the numbers on a line. It's Exhibit A, expected benefit payment projection. So the 2026, the increase, 65% is 50,000 a year. But then it jumps up quickly, and by 2031, it's 81,000 a year.
Page are you on?
64 of the packet.
Yeah, so if you do the math, which I looked at the 50 to the 65%,
Yeah,
pretty quickly you get up into the $70,000-80,000 range increase per year. That's a lot of money for the town to open a budget, and I think the taxpayers should reasonably have a say in that. I mean, personally, do I favor it? Yeah, I probably do. But to make that judgment for the entire town is kind of hard.
So I was able to connect with the actuary this afternoon. Chris and I connected by phone midday, and he raised this specific question to me as to the numbers here in this Exhibit A relative to what I had provided in my memo, which was based on what we actually budget. And the actuary had two basically responses to that so for instance, I'm showing that 50 to 65% in FY 26, would have been, which would be a little more next year, but roughly 22,000. So she had two responses. One was that my numbers are based on the Medix plan. their actuarial projections take into account that there can be retirees or their spouses who are on the regular plan. So that's embedded in their numbers, so you're gonna see a different number in an actuarial projection than in a, you know, this is like actually what we spend just. The other, and this is where it gets way out of my lane, is she was talking about what she called it, was it an implicit subsidy? And this is where my recommendation would be bring her to a
Yeah.
meeting, because this stuff is way over my head, but it was essentially to do with that with the plans, that they are not essentially self-funding, that there's money that the town raises and provides for current employee health benefits that is part of the overall mix. And yeah, I think the word she used was an implicit subsidy, and she started going on and on about what that means from actuarial terms, and I said, I'm not even gonna pretend to try to translate this. So my advice would be to have them come to a meeting, because I can't speak to that intelligently.
Okay. So if we were to bring this to town meeting, would it just be to accept MGL, or would it be to approve an increase of X for retiree health insurance?
Well, I
Or
think,
both, maybe.
yeah, we haven't done that research yet. I do know the town of Southwick earlier this month had a town meeting where they voted to increase the contribution rate for both active employees and for retirees. The treasurer sent me some news coverage. She found that it looks like it was a big town meeting, and like Southwick's not that big a town, and it looks like it was a big issue. The MGL that I referenced earlier, let's see. Charlottetown. So I believe that the MGL would authorize the town to pay an additional percent above 50%, but not, the form of question in the MGL doesn't specify a percent.
Right.
So I think adopting the MGL basically says it's up to, the board, obviously it's gotta be voted. One thing, one of my counterparts down in, it was East Bridgewater, or one of the towns who responded to the query I put in, said you could have your board vote contingent to voter approval of, a town meeting article, or it could be a ballot. This is where I'm a little confused, because the statute refers to by vote of the town, which is customarily town meeting, or the majority of a ballot. So usually a MGL specifies it's a town or it's a ballot. This says either or, and where there was this 1988 vote, which was a town ballot prescribing the 50%, that's where my assumption goes to that it would be a ballot, but we haven't reviewed any of this with town council, so we can do that.
I mean, ideally, if we were bringing it to town meeting to adopt the MGL, as part of the presentation for the vote, we could describe the reason why and get
Of course.
feedback from residents on how they feel about it, and that could be helpful.
Mhm.
Mike, do you have anything else before I invite comment?
Just one question, I'm not sure what, there's a matrix here that Angus put together, probably 16 or 20 towns and the rates for employees and retirees. The curiosity of that is we're right in the wheelhouse at the 50-50 on the retirees, but employees are generally at 65% or higher. Well, that seems like a bit of a disconnect. And I'm not sure what
I think that's a different one.
yeah, it's not that one, it's page
Oh, it's not that one.
53.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems fairly consistent that employees are getting a better benefit than retirees. I wonder what the rationale would be for that, I mean,
I wonder if it's related to this MGL that has to be adopted.
I don't know, I have no idea, I'm just.
Yeah, there's a separate MGL that authorizes towns to increase the percentage for employees. That has been adopted by West Newbury.
So that might be it. Okay, Lisa, did you have?
Sort of a viewpoint by now. Back in, I don't think it's 88, but back in the late 80s, early 90s, we had a town meeting at Kentucky High School, And the town adopted, don't ask me what section of 32 B, but they accepted whatever section it is, Angus, that the town board of selectmen at the time could authorize to pay retirees a different amount other than 50%. So I know that was passed and just nothing ever really came of it.
So that was the purpose of Angus's office doing the research, they.
Well, but that, I would love to, if you can elaborate on that, like, or think back, because basically, so the town clerk's office has a list that it maintains that when I started, McCarran gave, that he'd been maintaining for years, and prior to him, Larry Murphy, the list goes, so, and it goes back to like the 20s. And it's just a Word document, and it's a little clunky, I will say, but
Yes.
it's something that his office maintains, and I have relied upon as an accurate record. So that's what I'm going by.
Oh, not
If they're,
questioning.
well, no,
Just
but
saying
what you, because
we
if what you're saying is correct, it's possible something was voted. If it's not on that list, I'm not gonna find it. Now,
Yeah.
Amanda, she can look, and she can look in archives or contact Secretary of State. There's always more places you can look. But for my research, I'm kind of relying on.
Oh,
Well, but what you're saying is, because what you're saying sounds to me like 32B9E.
Mm.
But that's not on the list,
Because
so,
all I know is that it authorized the board of selectmen, that was what they were called at the time. That they had the authority to change the amount that the retirees received from the town.
And what year was that?
Oh, I don't remember, I was
Like late 90s?
I would say, no, probably early. All I remember was that we were meeting at something big was going on, we were meeting at the high school.
Do you remember who was on the selectmen at the time?
I think maybe Dick Birkenbush, but I don't recall who else.
because even just honing in on that, because, Amanda and Max, they've got all the town reports going back forever. So even honing in on like a 5-year window, they can just go and look at every vote that was taken in that period, and if it's there, we'll find it. So if it was overlooked on the list that, and obviously McCarran wasn't town clerk, town council in that period, so
No.
his predecessor had overlooked that. These things happen, so if it was voted, there's a record, and and what you're describing is 32B9E. So if they in fact voted that, then this whole discussion of a potential ballot or town meeting is moot.
That's
And none of us wanna go down that road if it turns out this board already has that authority.
Right.
So that's great insight that you're providing.
Okay, so Chris, if it turns out we do already have the authority, do you still want to get feedback from town meeting, or?
You get to be on the authority, you can do it, I think it's the appropriate things.
Yeah, that estimate is true, that feels like a lot of money to not get them.
Guarantee, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody right now, every time I look on Facebook, there's no transparency. That's what-
Yeah, so what would be the appropriate mechanism if we already have the authority? Just-
Well, I think one thing Chris and I talked about today, I think there'd be a couple of options. You could put an article on the warrant. Personally, I don't know that you'd need to. It would really be up to how you want to do it. A different thing Chris and I talked about is, let's say you gave the policy direction that you wanted to go to, 65%. Then when I'm preparing the FY27 budget, I would make that adjustment in our health insurance line. And then when that section of the budget goes before the voters, rather than it just being a number up on the page, the board or my office, whomever, could proactively share, hey, just so you know, part of why you're seeing an increase in this line is this. This is a policy decision that the select board is recommending, but that way the voters have eyes wide open. And if they vote it, they're essentially endorsing that. And if they say, we're not so sure about that, or we want to go to 60%, not 65, we could have the numbers handy and we could make that adjustment. But I think that would give it make sure there's, not just legitimacy, because I think if the board has authority, it could exercise that lawfully, but the appearance of legitimacy, which I think Chris's point is, I think the bigger issue nowadays, is there's a lot of things that are done legitimately, but people create an appearance that there's some,
Yeah, so that way it would also go through FinCom review, because I think
Yeah.
that's what we also would like to have. FinCom
Absolutely.
review. Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the other thing Chris and I talked about today is if the board has that authority because of that MGL.
Mhm.
Some future board could change the percentage back downward, but realistically, that never happens, you
Yeah.
know, and nor should it. I mean, once it goes up, that's now the new baseline, so even though it's not necessarily legally binding for the next 100 years, it always, set a new expectation.
So. We'll just.
Well, I think this is, if you can send me a note or stop in and just, because we'll have Max, we'll find what you're referring to.
Yeah, I'll check,
And because if,
I'll check with a couple people, see if they can.
yeah, because if 9E was already adopted, that totally changes the procedure that I've outlined.
Yep.
And if it wasn't, then I do think we would want to review with town council because of the specific language in the statute, which is this or. But my assumption is it would be a ballot vote and it would not be too late to get something on the May ballot if you chose to do that.
Okay, is it worth putting in a warrant article just in case it's town meeting vote?
I think it probably is. Since you're closing it tonight, I don't see any harm in putting a placeholder to that effect.
Okay. That makes sense, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just a minute, even if you can remember who was on the board at the time.
I know, I'm
it's
gonna
gonna
ask a
that
couple
in there,
people, see if
you
they
know.
can recall that.
Okay,
I'll
Gary?
get back to you.
Yeah, on the amount you're saying it's gonna cost per year, that you lose.
Yeah,
Well, some of the funds and the money that's included in that is for like police officers retire before they're 65, so they have to use the town insurance. So once they turn 65, that number drops considerably. I don't know if that's, but you gotta get out, it's, you know.
I would assume that would be part of the actuarial report, but we can check on that.
In the short period, it's gonna be more. Like I said, once they reach 65, they're gonna want the MedX.
Right, but the actuaries are looking at who's after them and who's after them and who's
Yeah,
after them.
Yeah,
So-
continuous.
Right,
I know we've had recently some younger ones that have retired. I don't know if you'll have that many going forward, I don't know. But nobody seems to stay in a job that way.
So, I mean, I guess one option, Angus, would this be, okay or legal if we approved a certain increase for existing retirees and, you know, subsequent retirees had a different rate, or does it have to be the same rate for all?
I seriously doubt you can split it that way.
I think there was one of the towns in there having it, people employed at a certain date specific.
Where it went up after a certain date, probably
Okay.
went down.
No,
Oh, Millis retired after July 2008, is that what you're,
yeah,
oh, hired on or before June 30th, 2025. That's estimate, that top line?
Oh, yeah.
again, they're both not clear as to what that
Yeah,
means, and you
yeah.
have to look into that.
Okay.
I wondered the same thing.
Mhm. All right. So I'm sure you have better things to do for our meetings. I'm sorry, this is dragging on so long, but we're trying to be thoughtful about how we do this and make sure the town is supportive of it. So next thing is to determine if we've adopted the MGL. If we have not, we'll either put it on the town warrant or have it be in the ballot this spring. And if we have, then we'll, you know, put something in the budget.
What would you actually put on the ballot? That's what I'm not clear.
Whether or not we should,
Adopting
the MGL 3090 or
and
whatever.
at that point, then the board could go ahead and.
Yeah.
Make their decision.
So that would be too late for this year, for the budget, because the budget would have already been approved at town meeting. So ideally, it could go on town meeting and then we could do both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of the Southwick, the news article that Caitlin Gilbert sent me, because they, like I said, this was a news article from like January 23rd, and it was talking about a town meeting that was coming up, and then a second article about after it had happened, but it was, you know, it was like question 1 was to increase the contribution percentage for employees, question 2 was to increase it for retirees, and so we could certainly track down like what, you know.
How they would-
Yes, because it could very well be that a town meeting vote could change it for FY 27.
Yeah,
We haven't gotten that far yet.
okay,
Our assumption until I learned about this 32B section 9E, my assumption was that the board could just change it and put it in the budget, and then when the budget's approved, that's that, but there's, in Massachusetts, there's always a law that makes things harder than you think.
yeah. Okay. All right,
Thank you.
yeah,
So Lisa, if we keep you apprised, it seems like you're doing a good job keeping everyone else apprised, is that?
I'm right on top of it, yeah.
Good, thank you, appreciate
you're
it.
so on top of it, you sent Marge to our meeting last night.
I know. Oh, yeah.
I know, we were glad to have you. Okay, let's see. An item F, review proposed and potential town meeting warrant articles. So the intent here is to just, if we have questions on any of these, Angus, we're not approving or,
Correct, yeah, it's really a binary yes or no.
oh, it is.
Is it on the warrant or not? I think it's,
We haven't even closed the warrant yet.
right,
Okay.
oh, yeah, so if you have questions that will inform that decision, then yeah, that's a good time for that.
All right, are you prepared to?
In terms of whether it's on, not whether you're.
Right,
And as you know, if you put it on, if you keep it on the list. And then 2 weeks from now or 5 weeks from now, you decide it's, the warrant's not posted until 14 days before town meeting, and you have the right up until then to take something off. It's just once you close the warrant, you can't have something new without
right.
putting it on an agenda to open it.
Right, we're gonna add one for placeholder for.
Yep.
times.
Yep.
The only other one, I mean, I'd love to see it get cut in half, it's crazy to have 50 again. The only one that kind of throws me, because our next agenda item, being up against this is the organizational assessment.
That's on there just in case the reserve transfer is not approved.
Okay. Yeah, placeholder.
Yeah.
I'll go through them, I'll listen to what you have to say.
Did you discuss with FinCom the idea of consolidating the capital articles?
They love it,
Oh, good.
they love the idea.
Are you okay with it?
Before I was, even though I might not be fully enthusiastic.
Okay.
So
All right,
I embrace them, see how it goes.
all right, fair enough. There
Which
are
articles would be compiled together?
19 through 31. Or,
20 to 30, right?
oh, sorry, yeah.
It'll give you a big number and it'll scare the achievers out of people.
Yeah. I mean, is there an opportunity to consolidate like transfers or?
Jenny and I believe there would be,
I
yeah.
think we should try it.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, it's more transparent
Right,
because it's, first of all, on the capital side, it presents that this is a cohesive capital plan. It's not like this, piecemeal. And second, on the transfers, I think having, every year we have people like put it here to there and there to there, and it's like a Venn diagram. And I think if it's all presented as a set of transfers that I think could be clearer to people, because there's a financial rationale and strategy behind all of this, and
We go back to the capital.
yeah,
Can you break it down maybe by, you've got public safety facilities and police and fire?
well, it would be broken down with the detail in the article. The way other towns do it, that presented as a single article, is presented as a capital budget. So it articulates the project, the amount, the funding source for each of the 13 things would be spelled out, but it would be a bottom line single vote.
I
So
was just thinking this presentation, Board could give this presentation on
Yeah.
like these 5 pieces of equipment. Be easy to do that in one article, but if you wanted to go down, you'd have 4 people presenting under the one article.
well, it's kind of like, I mean, how I put it together in the FinCom packet is, everything's kind of organized by, let me do a screen share for, might be remote. In the, for the FinCom meeting last week, everything's kind of broken down by category, facilities, fire, highway, Nantucket, police and rec. And then in this summary table I put together, it's all organized by, 2 highway, but 5 facilities, 1, so on and so forth. So it's kind of presented in a cohesive way, but.
All I'm saying is a town meeting, and we had the discussion a couple of meetings ago. I think sometimes where we already know all the background we've been dealing with for 5 or 6 months, it moves very quickly and the residents just vote without really asking questions. We said that whoever's gonna be presenting the articles should give explanations of it and be ready to defend with questions and answers. So I would hope that Butch and Brian and Chief Dwyer would all get up and say, well, in advance of the vote, I'm looking for these pieces of equipment, here's the reasoning and what I need. I just don't wanna have this be one number, one motion and voted and done, and people going, what just happened?
Yeah.
But I mean, this is analogous to the operating budget. We don't have each department get up and defend their budget. Right?
That
People-
freaks the heck out of me. They go through that whole budget. And it's tens of millions of dollars, and they vote about a single question, then we come up with something that's got $5,000, we debate it for half an hour. And it's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it
think
does
people need
bother
to
me.
say, if they have a question, to be willing to say hold and get an explanation. If we have each person explain, then there's no benefit to it, then why?
And again, my preference, I do at least 4 highway facilities, police and fire, but. Go ahead, I just,
I can share, and I know I did this, I don't know if I did it last year, but maybe 2 cycles ago, I had shared some samples from, I think, Newbury
Yeah.
and Merrimack or Groveland, because a number of towns in this area consolidate their capital articles into a single capital program that goes to the voters. So, it's partly a formatting issue in terms of the clarity of presentation. I'm
So
happy
maybe
to
that would be helpful.
send it, just so we can chew on and be specific about what we like and what we don't like.
again, the total of 20 through 31 is a little over $1 million. Quick math serves.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do?
yeah.
Well,
And how
again, it's a
much is the
lot of
operating?
money, people to just.
How much is the operating budget?
I'll bet 18.
17, yeah,
Yeah, so it's the same thing.
I am just as, I'm actually more bothered by that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
yeah,
so
all
we're
people
gonna-
do is they're looking at outside column, they've got more than 2.5%, that's all they
Yeah,
ever
what's
do.
the total?
How about is, it's $800,000 for this ballot in the first place, never mind, it's 800,000 plus 2%. I mean, and then people sit there and complain the tax bill went up so much, well, here's your chance to address it.
So we have an opportunity to work on presentation and calling things to people's attention, so. But that, if we combine them or not, that doesn't change what we're doing tonight, whether they're an aggregate or individual articles, so. All right, do you want to just start from the top, Chris, or how do you wanna?
Go right ahead.
I mean, could the funding for the master plan and rate study be combined? That's a small thing, but.
Give me numbers, which ones?
8 and 9. Let's
Yeah,
do
yeah,
engineering
okay, so,
studies.
yeah, they should be combined,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then so potentially all the transfers would be combined.
And the 13,
Is there any benefit to combine CPA articles or? I think that the typical transfers should be separate from like a project based.
I totally agree.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. And then so the funding articles 32 to 35 or 34, those are projects, but not, they don't meet the capital.
Correct.
That's right. And those are 3 different departments, right? Or 2.
Great, DPW, police, and 34 and 35 are both coming out of my office or your board.
Right. So the fees bylaw, are we gonna be, so that's 38 and 39, right?
Yeah, the idea is, so Amanda's been working really hard on this, going back to the, late fall. Is to present a bylaw with all of the fees townwide, every department, every fee enumerated. And that's gonna be, a 10-page bylaw, a lot of numbers.
Mhm.
So if town meeting does not adopt Mass General Law 22G or what?
F.
22F. Chapter 40, section 22F. Those fees will need to be adopted by a town meeting. And any amendment to the fees would need to be voted by town meeting. So I think it's kind of, you want door number one or door number two? Door number one is to adopt a fees bylaw with a comprehensive, all the fees. And voters could expect to see that at probably every spring town meeting for years to come unless and until they approve 22F, which would authorize boards, commissions, committee, or not committees, they don't charge fees, but and town officials to establish fees, which has been the practice here in West Newbury for 200 years. So
So this is
22F would basically kind of allow the town to do what it's been doing for a long, long time.
Okay, so this is either or. It's not
Either or,
Okay,
exactly,
all right.
yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Chris?
We'll have to wait till we get to it, right?
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
have discussion at that time.
So on the stormwater bylaw, that's simply the designation of the Board of Health.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that. I explained to Angus earlier that, right now the bylaw has a planning board responsible for that. And because of operational issues, and we have an employee, the health agent, who has expertise in that area, so they've kind of delegated it to the Board of Health, which I think is great use of resources. But I'm concerned about a bylaw that will require it to be the health agent and the Board of Health if we have a different health agent who doesn't have that set of skills. I think operational decisions should not be enshrined in bylaw. I just think it makes it hard down the road. So, that's my take on that.
You're basically saying all leaves and it should go back to the planning board, so why change it?
Right, I mean, functionally, it's working, it's just, I mean, is it really messy? Does it cause issues that?
I don't believe it has, I mean, as you and I talked about it, to me, it was kind of just integrity of the bylaw. The bylaw says the planning board, but in practice, it never has been since the vote was taken a couple of years ago by the planning board to delegate to the Board of Health as is its authority under the bylaw. So to a prospective developer or applicant, home builder, reading the bylaw, so, oh, it's the planning board, so, but I'm not aware it's caused any operational problems. It's just the bylaw says one thing. In fact, that is not how it's done. So I look at it as kind of a housekeeping issue. I know it's more complicated than that, but that's kind of how I look at it. If this isn't done, either because it's voted down or because it's removed from the warrant, it will not change anything in practice.
But if we do it, then when the Board of Health agent leaves, we're gonna have to unwind it at that time.
Yeah, Wendy makes very valid points.
I would just suggest pulling it then. Why? We're accommodating it pretty well right now.
Yeah, so do the regulations?
Well, I'm glad you actually, that's a really important point. I'm glad you brought that up. So, as you know, we have Horsley Witten Group under contract. They're working on a number of changes to the stormwater regs to improve them. The authority to adopt or to amend the stormwater regs rests with the planning board. So that's a little bit awkward because they'd be voted the regs, but the Board of Health is administering the bylaw in practice. So if the bylaw was amended to formally change that to the Board of Health, they would then have the authority to amend the regulations. So that, I'm very glad you brought that up. So Paul, he gave one example. I think this is a minor point, but he said, for instance, like the number of copies someone has to submit are there's a certain number required by the regs right now. He said the Board of Health wouldn't need nearly that many, so they would change that, but they can't change that because it's not their regs. So that's a very minor issue in the scheme of things, but
But the planning board could change it if it's something that matters to the board.
if they chose to.
I mean, I would just assume flood if you're okay with that. That's
I'm fine with it, yeah.
Dog kenneling. I don't know anything about this. I mean, there's a lot in here, but So this is a requirement, Amanda, did you work on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a requirement that the town have an established bylaw process for issuing kennel licenses and inspections.
And what's the effective date of that, was it this year?
We need to be in compliance by this summer.
So one of the interesting things about this, and I'm really on the learning curve here as well, but Amanda and I have met on it, she's kind of briefed me and I've looked at some of the summaries, but it's, people think kennel and they think commercial. The way this law, which was signed in September 2024, is anyone with 4 or more dogs.
No, that's always been the law. So
Oh,
it's always been the law. You
Oh.
have 4 or more dogs, you've always needed a kennel license. But
even if you're a homeowner
Homeowner, yep,
and it's
so-
non-commercial.
Yep, so
Okay,
these types of kennel licenses have already always been established. Different types of commercial, different levels of personal, charitable, like Sweet Paws. But not every community has a process. If they don't have the types of kennels that they issue, the process in which you apply for them, the process in which the building inspector and ACO go out and inspect them, and then how that works. And we have to have them.
Okay,
We
so
can't
the
not
process is
issue kennel
established, all of
licenses,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
And this is separate than anything, like this is completely separate than like planning boards and special permits. This is just strictly to do with town clerk and dog licensing under Mass General Law. We're required to issue kennel licenses, but depending on where the person's applying, other entities might be involved.
so it's this in the summary of this, and it's always law, regulations must be completed by June of this year.
Okay. The regulations, so we.
Local, right, our,
Okay, so
I
would that be
created,
in the bylaw, or you?
it would be the bylaw. I created a kennel bylaw section just to
Okay.
insert in there. Shared that with Sam, who looked it over. He
Okay.
actually asked if he could steal it for Groveland.
For a small fee.
So, yeah.
but we haven't referred that to town council, so that would be our next step, assuming it remains on the warrant.
But that's not the same thing as regulations, right?
It is, like, we would have
Yes.
to come up with our regulations, which would be a bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a state summary, so they're, I mean, they're using the word regulations broadly.
that's it.
It could be an ordinance, it could be a bylaw.
What if town meeting votes it down?
We're out of compliance with the state law, which is,
Like,
you know,
everything we have to do is because someone up there is telling us, so, oh, there's one.
Well, then we have a regular
That's what
4
we-
dogs or more,
we
you
have
need
to
a kennel license.
What?
If we have more than 4 dogs or more, you currently need a
No,
kennel.
you have more than 3 dogs. you need
Okay.
a kennel license.
That's currently,
Current,
where is that established?
Mass General Law, Chapter 140.
It's somewhere in West Newbury's.
That's everything about dogs is governed by Mass General Law. And the licensing and kennels, and then we have to have an adopted process on how we administer the kennels. We can't deny kennels.
I just remember a complaint many years ago, somebody had 3 or 4 dogs and they. Well, they had to get a kennel license, I'm sure.
If they had 4, then they need a kennel, but if they have 3, they don't.
Well, we have it somewhere, whether it's in zoning, I don't know.
It seems like there is something in the planning board, right, about kennels, but it might be something different.
It might be
You're
like if
talking
someone's building a
Like
commercial.
setbacks. or
Yes.
Stuff like that, and yeah,
This is just how,
Okay.
to get a license.
yes.
So we get there.
Okay. Vehicle control bylaw, that's the straightforward. This is just what he has in Groveland, right?
no, it's not. It's something we've worked on locally for the last couple of months. It, basically arose from a complaint that came in. And, as Sam was looking at, how to administer the current bylaw, it, goes back, I think to the early mid-80s, I believe. And it was written at a different time, and it's, it doesn't really have a process that makes a lot of sense. And in practice, that specific issue where the complaint came in, that was able to be resolved just by Sam communicating with the homeowner. It all got taken care of. This comes up very, very rarely, but looking at it, he said, geez, this really doesn't make any sense. And so he started working, he brought it to me, we talked with town council. They agreed that the way the bylaw is written is very ambiguous. And, so he's put together some red lines. I can't remember if I put those in the
Yeah. they were.
packet or not, but yeah, so it's to clarify. The licensing process and,
Okay.
the appeal process, so.
So this is more housekeeping.
That's how we look at it, but obviously, you know, we sometimes look at things as housekeeping
Yeah.
that people,
So I think it would be good if we can arrange to have like that it's not a public hearing actually, but just a public meeting about all the bylaw changes.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, we would have Sam present this, and this would be at one of the joint meetings with FinCom.
Okay.
If they weigh in on this might be an article that they may or may not, but whether he's presenting to you or whether he's presenting to you and FinCom, all of the articles will have, once they're scheduled, they'll have their sponsors kind of coming in and making a presentation. But if you take the time to read the current bylaw as written and just think of it logically, I think you'll come to the same conclusion he and I did, which is that it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Amanda, on the dog count, we don't currently have a bylaw, right? The
We
dog,
have a dog bylaw that was changed to animal bylaw, and I believe. I was trying to go back, and it looks like there was stuff about kennels in the bylaw at one point, it was removed either last year or the year before.
just because it says amendments, so I don't know if that should be called
it
the
would-
dog kennel bylaw amendment or just
Yeah,
the dog kennel
It would
bylaw.
be, well, the name of the bylaw right now is the animal bylaw.
Well, it was changed to the dog bylaw,
Yeah, so it's.
so would it be within that
Yes.
bylaw?
Dog bylaw.
Oh, okay, great. That makes sense, it's licensing.
Yeah, it's just, it would be changing, it's like section 2 or something.
Okay. Parking and loading bylaw, any questions on that, Chris? The two.
And just by the way, that is a zoning, so that will go through the planning board public hearing process.
Okay. But the vehicle control is not.
That is a general, let's see, vehicle control, let's see. I think it's a general bylaw.
Okay. So for the two canvas bylaws, those have to be two separate things, right?
They do, yeah, I met with Sam again on that because it just to me doesn't make sense. I think it'll be confusing to people, but it's, one is really the land use regulation, the other is more toward the licensing.
And those are requirements.
They have been since 2016.
Yeah, okay. 46, so lease authorization. Want to say anything on that, I guess?
So this is, we are aware that the, cellular companies are looking to develop, infrastructure out in the Break Hill area to address some service gaps, and the way that the federal law is written, the FCC regulations is there's a presumptive right of cellular providers to fill a service gap if there's a documented gap in service. So it's essentially an as of right process. There is some permitting and there is some oversight, but it's a very strong in favor of the applicant. So we aren't thrilled with the prospect of like a cell tower proposal out there. So the thought was where the Break Hill water tank is the high point. And the hill is a high point and the tank is above that. The thought was, we know a lot of towns that accommodate cellular infrastructure on top of their water tanks, and that generates money to the water department to offset the cost to ratepayers. So I talked to the water superintendent, the water commissioners, or at least the chair. They were very favorable to this and made me aware that this had actually been talked about many years ago. And what I'm told is it kind of went off the rails because there was, I'm told, a difference of opinion between the water commission and the select board as to who would get the revenue. So this was many years ago, but they were very favorable. So we did meet on site actually last Friday. I went out there with Mark and Bob, and the water operators were there. We met with a cellular company to just to gauge like is this well positioned? Could this work feasibly? So we don't want to spend a lot of time and energy about this if it turns out it's not a viable location or height. And so that is going forward. Anything, as I said in the article request form, anything like this, if authorized by town meeting, would obviously go out to a bidding process. And town council, I consulted with Sharon on this, and she said they've done 100 of these in cities and towns, and they've got a template RFP and template leases, and there's a lot of things that you put in to ensure the town's interests are secured, both in terms of obviously the cost of any retrofit that would be needed to accommodate the infrastructure itself, as well as things like if there's, callback pay associated with accessing the site off hours, all of those things you put into the lease to make sure that the town's held harmless for anything like that. So, but the idea is basically to position the town to capture the revenue of what, in my experience, and when I was in Whittier, I think there were at least 3, if not 4 different cell towers going on, like in the few years I was there. So it was a big issue. It was very, very, a lot of animosity and a lot of neighbor unrest. If we can prevent that by kind of hosting and generate money for the ratepayers, that seems like a win-win. It's another issue is going to get a lot of attention, a lot of discussion, and people will look at the pros and cons and all of that as they should. But from a management standpoint, it seems like a very good idea.
So that will not preclude the tower going up at another location that has poor service, right? Or will it?
Another location in town or this
In
area?
town,
Or I mean, in this area of town or elsewhere in town?
anywhere in town.
Anywhere in town that there's a service gap,
Okay.
there's a presumptive right for the industry to fill the gap.
But unless the zoning has changed since I was on the planning board, it is written such that town sites are prioritized over private sites first.
Yes, but that's only gonna be enforceable. Like, let's say someone proposed a tower on a private site and there's not like a public site sitting there. You're not gonna be able to enforce that. The FCC significantly rewrote the law in 2010 and they established what's called a shot clock. And what that says is when a wireless provider applies, if they apply for co-location, which is on an existing structure, church steeple or what have you, you have to issue the permit within 90 days. If it's a new tower, you have to issue the permit within 150 days, period. That is a quick amount of time. Because so the point being, if a tower was proposed and you tried to deny it because you're like, well, we'd really prefer you do a town site, I promise you will lose on appeal. That's what happened in Westford. They were on appeal when I was hired there because they turned one down and they got their hat handed to them by the court and it ended up getting no.
But I know a number of years ago, the select board put out a request for locations of these on town parcels. And they looked at the DPW site was another one. At one point, they started looking at the little brick building we just demolished. It's like, you can't put it there with the tower, because the rays are basically linear going right into the school. So we sort of canned, that was a long time ago, but then they put out the request for the DPW, and then I had suggested when they're building the water tower to consider it there, and they had no interest in it then. So those are the 2 locations, other than if you have a dead spot in private land. And we do have a tower in town, by the way, it's in the church steep, we permitted that one in many years ago.
Yeah.
You don't even know it's there.
Street is a dead zone,
Right,
There's no height there.
right on top of some turtles.
I do have a reason to think that the presence of the middle high school is a large part of why the industry is
I'm sure.
interested.
Yeah.
So that's near that service isn't good there. And I know from a public safety standpoint, there's concern if there was a, major event and all the kids and teachers got on their cell phones at once, that would create a bandwidth issue for the emergency communication infrastructure.
It's a great location and a great concept and all overdue.
Yeah, okay. Then sunset extensions, that's And then the non-binding resolution, is that what you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I don't really think that that's got legs.
Yeah.
So, but when I wrote this, you know, we hadn't had the meeting yesterday morning, so I wanted to keep it on there so we didn't forget about the idea.
Okay.
That could be done as a side, as a town report, someone will.
It could, yeah. And I did, you know, I put these intentionally omitted just so you knew, you know, I hadn't forgotten, but these are some we've done pretty routinely at the Springtown meeting. Budget personnel, if the sunset extensions are approved, that's a moot point. And as far as the transfers to capital stabilization, I met with Jenny on that last week before she left for vacation. And as we talked it through, we both agreed that since there's a lot of activity in these proposed that would affect both free cash and stabilization, this town meeting, she felt that it would make more sense going forward to do those transfers in the fall town meeting when you know what's happened, because the amounts, the whole idea is to keep the balance in free cash no more than the 5% what DOR recommends, and keep the balance in stabilization no more than the 5% that DOR recommends, and to put everything else into capital stabilization. But if there's gonna a lot of transactions, you know, into and out of those accounts at the Springtown meeting, because we put the money in through the operating budget. Any, you know, let's say you had it on the Springtown meeting, and let's say one of the articles fails, you'd want to adjust the number right then and there to get, so it's, her thought was we should do that in the fall. I thought that made a
Yeah,
lot of
that makes
sense, so.
All right, so it looks like other than those two articles, everything's good.
Well, we're gonna add the one.
Yeah, the MGO one.
Yeah, those were the two, the 32, addition of the 32B, and then the deletion of the stormwater bylaw.
And deletion of the 48 non-binding resolution.
Right, yeah.
So can we just jump to the skip an item and make the motion to close the ones?
Sure.
Then that's what we're talking on right now.
Mhm.
Make a motion to close the warrants with the changes as we just discussed.
Second. Further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
All right, so the next item is to, request to sponsor the FinCom reserve fund transfer for partial costs of the, proposed organizational assessment. So I'll get back to that. I did want to note that, when I submitted the warrant article request for that, there were a couple minor changes in the scope that this is an older copy.
Oh, okay.
See if I can find that. One is the schedule. I took out the June or, you know, whatever.
Okay.
Hang on a minute. So. So I just changed the schedule so the assessment will be completed within 3 months. Final presentation will be held at a subsequent select board meeting. And then under the scope, under the governance item, I added a bullet, to say identify opportunities for delegation of work in support of town priorities to select board appointed committees, and identify processes that should be used to maximize effectiveness and improve communication. So some of the feedback I received in the select board chair office hours was about that topic, about figuring out a delegation process that everybody understands for town work and how to communicate better. So I think that's right in line with what this is doing, so.
Can you just read the wording again?
Yeah, so it's in the warrant article packet under the,
It's not in the transfer packet then.
no,
Okay.
sorry.
Cause I'm looking at it, it's not making sense. Okay.
Angus, are you able to pull up the warrant article packet, because it's updated on this? Yeah, so under governance, we go to the top of the next page. Yeah, so it's that first report there. All right. So I guess the intent here is, there is some funding, available from the select board account and town manager account, so we would be looking for a FinCom reserve fund transfer to cover the balance so that we could start this project right away and then have the information, hopefully, for the next budget year.
Motion? Make a motion to request a $15,000 transfer of the FinCom reserve fund to support the operational assessment.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So then if that's successful, then we would pull that article that's in there right now.
And what's the anticipated timeframe to FinCom to address this?
I don't know, could we do that next week or? Okay.
Yep.
The joint
I think
meeting.
the
Earlier.
faster that goes, to get this taken care of with the.
All right, so next item is referral of proposed zoning bylaw amendments to the planning board for public hearing. Can we do that en masse or do we have to do them individually?
I think it's fine to further vote. I think it's just two. I think it's just the parking, loading and the cannabis.
Oh, okay.
The stormwater is a
Okay.
general bylaw.
All right, okay. Okay. Just want to make a motion.
Which ones are we doing? Just the refer?
Yeah, procedurally, it's gotta be referred to the planning board for hearing.
Which one, the cannabis?
The cannabis, zoning and the parking and loading, so those are the two.
So the equity one doesn't have to be, that's not.
No, that's not zoning, that would be, a general bylaw, or the state allowed town of Groveland to adopt regulations, it didn't even, but they already had a bylaw approved, so.
Think that is a motion.
Okay. Second that motion. All in favor?
As a comment, the reason I was hesitating confused is because there's no correlation. C of I is used dates for both FinCom meetings within the packet, so that's item C of I, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just hesitant and confused there.
All right, being straight now.
No, well, that's CJ is the, FinCom dates.
Okay.
CI, there's no backup in there, because it was part of your articles packet,
Okay,
Whatever.
but it's the parking, loading and the cannabis are the two zoning
Yeah.
amendments.
Okay. and then so they have a certain amount of time to hold a public hearing.
Yep.
60 days, is that right?
It's gotta be, it has to be referred to them at least 65 days prior to the town meeting.
Okay. All right, next item is review of the dates for joint meetings. So my question here is the ones that are not joint meetings, does that mean they're gonna vote on articles and then we'll have to redo it at a select board meeting?
Yeah, I mean,
Do them all joint. and-
Yeah, if you wanted to, that's
Are
fine.
you okay with that, Chris? Just to try to move these along, okay. All right, so that would be these 5 meetings, and then there's one reserve, right, for the week of March 30th?
So let me just grab the schedule, because it's been extraordinarily hard to.
Yeah.
Like, very hard to get the date, so, yeah, here's what I'm looking for, so. Next Thursday, joint meeting, Tuesday, the 17th of February. Wednesday, the 4th. Thursday, the 12th, joint meeting. Thursday, the 19th, I don't think I had that in the memo on Tuesday. And Thursday, the 26th, joint meeting. So the reason I was trying to avoid the 19th is, we had a FinCom member not present or not available, but, his schedule changed. Actually, he just emailed this afternoon, so. Promise, not a promise, just a fact, so we had, a couple of FinCom members who were each out for a period of like 3 weeks
Mhm.
in this window, so there was just no possible way to find dates that work for every single person, so. He said. Yeah, I'm looking at this, so I just got an email at 3:15, so he said he is now available on the 19th, but now he's not available on the 12th. So that would be two FinCom, so I think the 12th is gonna work, so I'm
All
gonna
right,
have
so
to
these-
work with Dennis tomorrow, like, it has been a nightmare trying to get
Yeah.
this schedule,
So we have February 12th and 17th at least.
February 12th and 17th, March 4th is good,
Okay. So the rest will-
I think March 19th is gonna be good,
Okay,
because, you know, this is, and, I think the 26th is good.
okay,
But if we go away from March 12th, which I think we will, with 2 out of 5 members not, available, we'll have to find a different date.
okay.
But we still have a select board meeting at that point. Or not.
Is that a regular select board night?
On the 12th, you do.
We'll get a day off.
Nope. All right, good. All right, next item is the minutes. Did you have any questions or corrections on the minutes, Chris?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Oh,
I
why?
pre-approved them and then you approved and changed something and I wasn't sure, but it's irrelevant, so.
Well, it's not irrelevant if it's a question.
No, I'm fine. Make a motion to approve the minutes of January 15th, that's the one.
Okay, I got the change.
Okay.
I got mixed up between the 2 weeks, so on page 71, item, discussion items D. That, what I wrote there was actually what was done the following week, so.
Okay, so you want to remove TD and put it into the.
No, it's already in the other one. When I was doing the other one, I realized, oh, I already said that, so.
Okay.
I think we just generally, we didn't discuss anything about that. We just decided that we would look at it at the next meeting, look at a list, so.
You want to modify it?
Yes, man's ready, and they have it, right? Yeah. That's the key.
A motion to approve the minutes of January 15th is modified.
All right, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything on the next? January. 22nd?
January 2nd is submitted.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. On to discussion, notice of intent to remove 4.2 acres from chapter 61 at 125 River Road. You want to just go over the process and the timeline on that?
Yeah, so the notice was received, it was, stamped in last Wednesday. And, in accordance with the policy, we referred it immediately to town council, who under the policy has 2 days to, confirm as to whether it's, complete and responsive. We did get confirmation from town council, it is complete. And therefore, the day that it was stamped in is when the 120-day right of first refusal period began. So it was sent out, the day it was received to the town entities. And we've kept track of, we've asked for everyone to confirm that they have received it, and we've done that. And so the next step is that and then I sent a follow-up last weekend to the town entities, letting them know we heard from town council that it was complete and that the right of first refusal period has begun. So the town entities are charged with reviewing the notice and deciding whether to make a written recommendation to the select board as to whether the land is viewed by that entity as of value to the town, and if so, why. The select board will set an agenda item at the next available meeting, which is the one tonight. It will still allow the town entities, in the opinion of the chair, a reasonable opportunity to prepare recommendations. The town entities will be notified of the time and date of the meeting. Town entities not providing feedback or providing notice of their intent to provide feedback within 7 days of being notified will be assumed as not wishing to offer a recommendation. And then the town entities will provide notice to the board of their intent to provide feedback. And they will be afforded a reasonable amount of time in the opinion of the chair to consider the request, but in no instance shall the deadline to provide feedback be longer than 28 days from the initial date of notice. So where the additional date of notice was last Wednesday, it's basically 4 weeks from there is the latest that you would meet, and that would be the deadline for town entities to express to you whether they feel the town should exercise this right of first refusal.
That's kind of challenging with committees that meet monthly, right?
This is all statutory.
Yeah, okay.
The chapter land process is very challenging. When we get a filing,
Yeah.
we all have to move quickly.
So obviously the planning board and conservation commission meet bi-weekly, so that's fine.
Right. I mean, they've all received it.
Okay. Oh, so Carol's here. So will open space committee be meeting by,
No, it'd be February, our next meeting is on 25th. So we would need to have an emergency meeting.
or an additional, yeah, okay. So for anybody interested, there's a link in the packet on this to the policy. It's also on the town webpage policies, but in terms of which committees and boards, are considered interested parties and need to weigh in.
Find the process kind of out of sync on this one. They went and they got a subdivision permit by combining two lots, and then they come to take it out of 61A, they're starting clearing on the lot, I mean. It seems very problematic, it doesn't seem. I don't know
Not in
if
the
it's-
spirit of the,
But definitely not in the spirit, but, and by the way, it's not just, most of this, everybody thinks it's 61A, you get this protection, you don't.
yeah,
The minute they wanna sell, they can just wait a couple of years and pay the taxes those 2 years and take it out. There's all kinds of ways to avoid it. This one seems exceptionally sloppy. I mean, this came to select board a year and a half ago. I would have thought before they would even go forward with a subdivision plan, with the planning board would have to come out or be noticed. It wouldn't. Seems like there's a flaw in the process.
no, until there's a change of use in the land, that's what triggers the 61A or the 61 withdrawal. So if you're permitting and, I guess that's not considered a change.
There was definitely a change because it combined two parcels and then re-subdivided them, so I don't know. It's just very. So I guess it's not in the spirit of the.
Yeah.
And this was, and again, the other very frustrating thing, it says. There is no sale, so therefore, if you were the town or required, you gotta do appraisals in full and fair market value.
Right.
There's obviously paperwork associated with this that. Parties are involved with, that they're excluding the town out of the process. I don't think the town has a need or a want for this land.
Mhm.
I just find that the process is, getting twisted in ways that was never intended to be.
I think the same is true for large property, just cutting off small parcels.
I've seen that, and I've got another parcel of mine that we just had the same issue on recently.
Yeah.
I think there's this false expectation that 61A gets you some protection. It seems to be much more beneficial to the landowners at the time till they decide to monetize it.
But this is all set up by state.
I know, I'm just saying. I
I'm
think
confirming with Angus that,
Yeah.
so there's not any workaround for us to try to make it, work more like it was intended.
I mean, I think that, part of Chris's, observation is whether the, filing of subdivision application constitutes a change of use. I believe we've checked with town council previously on, with other properties and it doesn't. So years ago, a buddy of mine who worked at the State House, this particular senator he was looking at was looking at this 61 statute statewide in terms of whether there are kind of systematic abuses, because it really, these same issues we're seeing here happen in the 349 cities and towns. I don't know if this applies in Boston, but they tend to have a different set of laws there. But I think Chris's critique is absolutely fair, but I think it's a critique of the statute.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think with the Eagles Nest subdivision, I'm not certain, but I believe that did require a special permit. I do, my gut instinct is that the planning board probably could consider that in a special permit process as opposed to the as of right subdivision process. So if that's the case, then that could be something that, if this were to happen again, they could perhaps not issue a special permit, or they could require that that the notice be provided I'm not sure what they can do,
Okay.
but it's,
I mean, it does seem like a change in use, it was agricultural and now it's two residential
or
houses.
it's forestry, yeah, forestry.
But whatever it was,
Yeah,
now it's
yeah.
two house lots, it is a change in use, whether there's a loophole in the regulations. Inherently it's not fair to towns, by having that exemption.
All right, so we are voting to, we're not voting, it's just a discussion.
Yeah, you're setting a date
Yes,
for,
date,
and
yeah.
what's gonna be the deadline you're gonna provide the other town entities to provide it.
All right, so 28 days would be when?
Would be, February 25th, it would be 28 days from the date it was received.
That's that line then, so.
You've got a meeting next Thursday, and then you do not meet the following week, so you meet on the 26th, so. But the 28 days is in your policy, that's not in the statute. That was put in so that the board needed to have some reasonable deadline for the town entities to comment, because if there is an interest to exercise the right of first refusal, you need time to get an appraisal and do all that within 120 days, so that the 28 days, I remember when, you know, the board amended that policy in the last year or two, it was specifically to make sure that that front end was kind of hastened,
Mhm.
so you could get to a decision. So I think if you set the 26th,
Yeah.
there's no statutory issue there, that's just, there's one more day than your policy provides.
Okay, so that would help you, right? Open space, yeah, okay. All right, so that sounds good, 26. All right, that's not a vote, right?
No, but I've been keeping the property owner apprised, and I told them I would let them know what comes out of tonight's meeting in terms of the dates.
Okay, good. All right, the next item is to consider a request to ban SGAR pesticides on town property. So this is something that towns in our area and across the state are working on. We have a resident here to provide some information. I guess the overall ask is for the select board to adopt a policy to ban the use of these pesticides on town property. So. Kathy,
Am I good here?
you are, yes, I think
And
that's
you'll be able to
good.
hear me on the loudest speaker.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening in support of a policy to ban anticoagulant rodenticides on municipal property here in West Newbury. First of all, I have to thank Angus for sending me down this pathway. If he recalls, he saw a post that I had put up on social media last fall, maybe, and said, "Oh, I think you might be interested in this," and then forwarded me a link to Mass Audubon's Raptor Resource Toolkit, and kind of got me started with some educational programming and to learn more about the issue. And I think that it's an important one for our community that I think would gain a lot of support. So I know that there's a lot of information in the packet, but I wanted to briefly explain the issue. Anticoagulant rodenticides are essentially mouse and rat poisons. They are used primarily by pest control companies and are they can typically consist of a solid block of bait material that's housed inside of a large black bait box. And I think people in the community would recognize them outside of the supermarkets. And we do have them here on town property in some locations. The method of poisoning for an anticoagulant rodenticide is that our creature, our mouse or rat, goes into the black bait box, consumes some of the poison, and then leaves that box. They are not trapped in there. They can go back to their little rodent burrow and share information with their friends. And the idea is that they don't die from that poison immediately. It does take 2 to 10 days, and the method of death is internal hemorrhaging. Essentially, they bleed to death. And it's a long and slow death and painful, I assume. And our road's probably not high on our sympathy list, but it's still not a great way to pass. The big in 2022, over 500,000 pounds of anticoagulant rodenticides were used by pest control companies in Massachusetts. This is in spite of absolutely no scientific data showing that these products actually do what they claim to do. They do not reduce rodent populations, and there is some data that suggests that in fact rodents are drawn to the bait boxes, and more rodents will come in to fill the space that the ones left. What we do have quite a bit of data about, and sadly an increasing amount of data, is the tragic consequences that these anticoagulant poisons have on our native predators. And these are our creatures who are nature's perfectly designed solution to help keep our rodent population in balance. In a 2024 study by Keeping and Wildlife reported that 100%, every single one of 57 studied animals had significant levels of one or more anticoagulant rodenticides in their livers. And the vast majority were the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides, and I can explain a little more about the difference between the first and second in a little bit. The thing that you should be clear about is that this is not the total number of predator species that are poisoned that year. It's merely the number of animals that were brought to keep it in for an necroscopy. Wild animals don't typically show up at the emergency room for treatment, so we don't really know or have good data on how many of our raptors, hawks, owls, and our mammals, such as foxes, coyotes, fishers, succumb to rodenticide poisoning in any given year. Sadly, many of the animals that are actually found and brought to a wildlife rescue are really too sick to be saved, and do pass. Many do recover with vitamin K treatment to reverse the effects of the anticoagulants. Each year, in addition to our wildlife, each year MSPCA Angel treats roughly 50 pets for either primary or secondary rodenticide poisoning, with many more seeking treatment from their local providers. Just for clarification, primary poisoning is when the dog or cat finds and eats the rodent poison, from a spilled bait box or broken bait box where they can get a hold of that. Secondary poisoning is what we're commonly seeing in our raptors and predator species, is when the dog, cat, or raptor eats the poisoned mouse or rat, and then the toxins bioaccumulate, so they build up in the system of our secondary targets, not targets, but secondary species that do eat these mice or rats, and the toxins build up, and then they eventually become anemic and then succumb to complete organ failure and internal hemorrhaging. So also a very awful way to pass. Additionally, there were 200 poisons between 2021 and 2023 in children, with over half of those cases being children under the age of 6. So, I think I said that. Mass Audubon initiated an education and advocacy campaign in the spring of 2021 and introduced legislation after the first confirmed death in Massachusetts of a bald eagle. I think that year there were 2. It didn't, I think they did bring legislation to the state, but it did not go very far. In Arlington, took the deaths of a high profile, beloved bald eagle pair in 2023. I think they had names, they were MK and another 2 initials, and they were very well known. They had on the side at Mount Pleasant Cemetery, I believe. in 2023 to bring greater attention to this issue and to jumpstart a campaign to ban second generation rodenticides from our environment. State legislation was not acted on by the end of the 2024 session. So it is back in the state. There are bills in the House and Senate, and there are a growing number of communities that have indicated their support for an anticoagulant rodenticide ban through both policies for municipal bans at the select board level and for home rule petitions through the town meeting process to ban these publics and to ban these products in their towns. As of early January, Mass Audubon has listed 45 towns with municipal bans and 32 towns that are in various stages of filing home rule petitions with the state. This morning, I did have a chance to speak with the liaison from Mass Audubon, Heather Packard, and she said now there are over, by the end of January, over 100 communities, either with home rule petitions in process or local municipal policies. So West Newbury is a community that protects and loves its open spaces and the wildlife that call our field, woods, and marshes home. We promote growing native plants to help our pollinators. We remove invasive species. We leave leaves to protect our overwintering insects. It's truly a gift to live here, and I feel that we have an obligation to protect our natural spaces and our wildlife for the generations that come after us. I also believe that once our community sees and understands the impacts of these poisons, and that there are very effective alternatives, that we would embrace a policy that protects our wildlife from needless pain and suffering from anticoagulant rodenticide poison. I understand that Brian Richard has taken steps. Is that you? I haven't met you. No, I don't know him. That Brian Richard has taken steps to change the products used by our pest control vendor. And I'm truly very thankful for his responsiveness to my initial email and his positive actions in this regard. I'd still like to request that we do approve a policy codifying a ban on anticoagulant rodenticides for the following reasons. I'd like us to add our name to that belongs terms banning anticoagulant rodenticides. It publicizes our commitment as a community to the health and safety of our children, pets, and wildlife, and encourages other nearby communities to do the same. We know that Newbury has a policy in place. I'm gonna get my L towns mixed up. Lowell has a policy as well, and North Andover is in process as well also. Our birds and mammals don't really understand our borders, so it's really important that we fill in all those gaps of that patchwork quilt of safe places. A town policy is really a small first step in terms of its impact, but I think it lends support and credibility to small and growing movement. I believe there is strong community interest in learning how we can protect and preserve our wildlife and natural habitats by employing alternative pest control strategies that don't require anticoagulant rodenticides. Looking forward, I think the bigger goal is to submit a resident supporting warrant article for the fall town meeting. We don't have time, obviously, to see that in the spring. Nor do we have the time to educate our residents and gain their support. So that would be a home rule petition to ban the use of anticoagulant rodenticides townwide. Honestly, I really wish that someone other than me had started this initiative, as I'm the least likely person to be standing here speaking to you. And I would have liked that to have been done earlier so that we could be on the warrant this spring. But I think it's really important that our community is educated and supportive. And I think it would be a really positive thing for the town to do. Each year that passes without us taking action to protect our wildlife and our environment leads to increased suffering and further loss of wildlife. In the sixties, I'm found a little history chore. We almost exterminated bald eagles in the lower 48 due to the impacts of DDT. We now have a thriving bald eagle population here along the Merrimack River, and I think a lot of our residents really enjoy seeing them on a regular basis. And I know I'm always thrilled to see them. I don't think that's something we want to lose here. I think in the packet, I did include a potential draft of a anti-coagulant rodenticide policy. And that's really not to be presumptuous, but to hopefully ease the burden on our town officials. I know that it's a really busy time right now, and that's not ideal timing possibly. That draft is a combination of the policy that Newbury put forward 2 years ago, and it's nearly identical to the current legislation that's working its way through Congress. And it's also nearly identical to a policy that was just passed in Maynard. It does include a ban on both types of anticoagulant rodenticides, which are first generation products and second generation products. The older bills and towns that were early on the agenda specifically targeted second generation rodenticides, and that's a great start, and I certainly would go there. What they're finding is that that the first generation rodenticides are also, they're quicker to be lethal for our raptors or mammals, and that the rescues are not really able to save animals that are being poisoned by first generation products. So it was a request to Audubon from the rescue organizations to kind of include first generation products as well. And Arlington being one of the first towns to initiate policy in a home rule petition. They are now going back to town meeting this spring to include first generation rodenticides as well as a neurotoxin. I think that's a whole different class than neurotoxin, and I did not choose to include that. I think Arlington's kind of an outlier. It's a horrible product, but I think in terms of support of a broad support across town, I think that first and second generation would be appropriate. The second generation rodenticides are a slower acting agent, but they do really accumulate. They have a much longer half-life, so that as our mammals and raptors consume mice and rats, the toxins build up over a very long period of time before it causes death. So a few things I didn't go into very much detail, but I can certainly discuss if there's time or interest. We have kind of, since it became a future discussion item on a select board agenda, kind of gotten a few people to come along and express interest in working on this project. Lisa's been very engaged and has initiated a website for State Works Newbury Wildlife. And generally we've gotten a lot of positive comments from posts, both on regular West Newbury social media sites, as well as the Save West Newbury Wildlife site. I could talk about alternative strategies to rodenticides. Integrated pest management is very effective and proven and used by some big towns and cities that have probably far more significant rodent issues than we do here in West Newbury. The city of Newton has not used anticoagulant rodenticides for over a decade. And they rely on a strategy of integrated pest management. It requires a little more hands-on effort. And there's included in your pamphlet in the post, there's information, more information about that, and I have a pamphlet if people want to see that. There are companies specifically that don't use anti-climate rodenticides. Banner Pest Control is one. And I know that they have spoken to groups, and I think that going forward, that would be a nice educational program for people here to hear from Retiree or one of the other companies that have methods that are not reliant on these poisons. The other kind of thoughts, there are potential impacts of the anti-climate rodenticides on our water systems. I think the data is in the early phases of coming out. I think as we keep dumping 500,000 pounds annually, that we'll see more of that. And I think there would be reasonable concern for those pesticides to end up in the Merrimack River, which I don't think our bald eagles would appreciate particularly. Also, there is the state legislation. If that passes, we would not need home requisition, but that's a little bit of a long shot, I think, for this cycle. There's a lot of positive movement and a lot more support, but I think it would be still worthwhile for us to do some education and programming and kind of shoot for a fall town meeting date. I think that does it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to present to you, and I would love to answer questions and not continue to talk.
Okay. Chris, so for people that are watching or watching later, there's quite a bit of information in the packet with some links. There's a video, a 4 or 5 minute video, and the letter from Kathy that I would recommend people watch. Chris, did you have any questions? I mean, we're not voting on this tonight, but I just wondered if you had questions, people.
Yeah, I mean, my first question was going to be, use this on our town properties. Kathy addressed that. I'm kind of surprised we do. Where, for what reasons?
Wait, kind of surprised we do.
Yeah, so this unfortunately is a typical pesticide used by pest control companies, so
I can't imagine on town properties where we need it, I guess.
buildings.
I believe there's some.
Oh, yeah, well, so we've gotten, Brian's been great and Kathy's been a great resource. I had gone to a session on MMA a couple of years ago on this, and so when I saw her post, I shared the resources I got from that, and that I think helped put 2 and 2 together. But yes, I started meeting with Brian on this in the fall. He was in touch with our vendor and corresponded with them, and we've gotten written confirmation that as of March 1st, their goal is to have all SGAR products removed. All bait stations will be labeled to indicate they've been converted, and technicians will be instructed to provide more detailed exclusion and IPM or integrated pest management recommendations for service notes. That's going to be there's a team thing that's going to impact Brian as well in terms of his work, but he's happy to do
You
this.
said the bait stations get converted
Yeah.
to what do they use another product? Or what?
That's going to be a question for Brian. That's out of my realm, but it lists specifically there's 11 properties where we currently have the pest control, town office building, library, public safety, Mill Pond building, Garden Street Fire Station, the DPW water, the old building on page. The learning tree of the town hall are listed as 2 different buildings. Council on Aging, Snack Shack, and the DPW shed.
Okay, I'm surprised. Again, I hate this stuff. A number of years ago, we had a dog that got into some of it. It's not a pleasant result. And to her point, the thing that bothers me the most is people use it, and probably on private properties, and you go up, you kill the mouse or the rat. Exactly, as you said, the birds get it, and it becomes almost unavoidable. So,
So I think it's important to note that these products are not sold to homeowners. I mean, I'm sure there are ways
Well-
that we can get it, but it's not generally.
even the homeowner products are terrible.
Yeah, I
They do.
agree.
So, long and short of it is that we'll support the policy at the time when you want to vote it,
Okay.
so.
All right.
I think the home rule petition will be a much more difficult push, but with some education, we hopefully can convince the residents in this town it's a good thing, so
Mhm.
appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, did you have anything to add? I think we'll take this up. I'm not sure exactly when, but I appreciate that. You've gone to the trouble of drafting it for us. It gives us a good place to
And
start.
in terms of changes of practice, in practice, in terms of what's within our control, those changes are already in progress. So to codify that with a policy is a great thing, because that way you have institutional memory. And we can also, communicate with the housing authority, and we haven't been in touch with them on this, and this doesn't refer to things like, I don't know if they have pest control for like the water pump station. I don't know. This is all stuff Brian oversees. So, even on the public properties, there's, well, probably more than just the 11 that I've named.
Just a question, I know that the housing authority apartments right behind us. That would not be under our jurisdiction.
No.
I don't know if we can have some influence on how they might choose that. Definitely would like to talk to them about it because they're very visible. I mean, I think if you didn't really realize that they weren't, you would assume that they were part of town property.
You wouldn't.
And they're also old boxes that are not labeled. So it's we're down around 2 feet of snow, but they're very visible and we're right next door to that park. So people have dogs that they're walking and kids that are strolling. So it just seems like a little bit of a scary place to have now.
All right, did you have a comment? We just don't want to spend too much more time.
Yeah, just two things to answer one of the questions. One of the things that they use in Watertown was a town that switched from SGARs is actually vitamin D3 is what they use, which is what used to be Con. People remember that. Another thing is that this year they did find for the first time an actual turtle that when they tested it did have SGAR. So it is in the water systems now, and they're worried about finding more of that. So another really important thing for West Newbury, because I know we're concerned about our water resource. As far as the housing authority goes, I mean, I can look into that too. But I think that one of the important things to also think about is that homeowners actually can get a hold of this. There are ways they do get a hold of it and use it. And so the educational process of holding events and putting information out there so that people understand the danger of this poison. So it's going to be wonderful to get them banned, and it's going to be wonderful to maybe get a petition through, but education of people so that they know what's happening is of equal importance.
Okay, thank you for coming and for hearing all this. Appreciate it, Kathy.
And I would say, Wendy, you already referenced this, but I'll just point out for those who might be interested, if you do go to the packet, we embedded the hyperlinks that were in Kathy's, so you can actually click right there to the video and to the other links you provided. When we print things to PDF, it doesn't automatically link, but we did that manually so that if people want to, you just follow the breadcrumbs, you'll get the breadcrumbs.
All right.
I'm working off an iPad with no memory. So if you're lucky, you got what I got.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, the next item is discussion of special event permit applications for the public. So I just wanted to start by summarizing the facts about this. There's been a lot of discussion about this, and I think some misinformation, so I'd like to try So the special event permit process is intended to protect residents' rights, that might be impacted by a special event, and also the safety of the participants. And the definition is a special event is any activity that occurs on public or private property that affects the ordinary use of parks, playgrounds, fields, buildings, public streets, rights of way, and sidewalks. And most towns and cities have an identical or similar process in place to regulate these activities. This process and application is on the town website. Can you go back to like the homepage so you can see, because there have been statements that this is not readily available. If you go to the homepage and then just click either the select board or the town, or even that, but it's also linked under the select board webpage and the town clerk webpage. So, it's been on the town website for a long time. This is the existing one now. Yeah, if you go to bylaw up at the top. And then scroll down and it's down right there. So I know if you're not familiar with the website, sometimes it's hard to find things, but it's available in, you know, from 2 or 3 locations. So this application that proponents use for special events was developed by the town clerk's office. They're responsible for pulling all the information that's required on that application, and then they bring it to the select board to review and vote on whether we approve it. And that's always happens at a select board meeting as opposed to an agenda item. And our main intent is to make sure that other residents' rights are not unduly impacted by this event. For example, a road race with a lot of people running by your home, if your street's blocked by this, you're not going to be very happy. So we've started requiring race companies to put up signs 3 days in advance to warn you, so that at least you can plan ahead. So this process has been in place since at least 2016. This is not a new process that the select board just created. We've been doing this for a very long time. It was last modified in 2022, and I think that's when there was a fee added. What happens is that people were waiting until the very last minute, and the process of getting this approved involves police department approval, fire department, board of health. I mean, there's a number of town entities that have to approve it. So if these people wait till the last minute, it's very difficult, and they often have their event already publicized. And so the select board at the time implemented a fee that if you wait too long, till 60 days ahead, there would be a fee. So that was the most recent change.
And if I could interrupt, that fee's
Sure.
never been charged.
Right. So it was really not to collect money. It was designed as a deterrent to do
Right,
that. I'm not sure if it's been
remember it.
effective, but.
Yeah, I remember almost like it was yesterday. I think Archie was on the board, others, and you know, I think there was something before them, and it was for an event that was like 10 days out, or maybe even like it was, he's like, what could be, he was so frustrated.
I'm sure.
And so that was when, you know, they put that in just to say, look, 60 days ahead. In practice, a lot of these are the same proponents
Yeah.
year after year, and, you know, when he listed, you know, 5 or 6 departments, but really, it's like, it's a sign-off process, and I know Chief Dwyer is, you know, he's gotta look at things more closely, but a lot of these, it's really just confirming that they're fine. There's like, Board of Health only has to sign off if there's like food involved or whatever, so it's a pretty efficient process.
Yeah, so what happened, I think, to start all this discussion was, the select board, was finding that applications would come in, the application was a little bit outdated. And it was confusing to applicants sometimes, and a lot of times we would identify things that weren't answered, and so we were spending 2 or 3 meetings going through these applications, which is not great for us, it's not great for the proponents. So we had asked the town clerk's office to just work on the application, try to make it more user-friendly, highlight the things that we typically want to see, for example, the signs for road races 3 days in advance. So they were working on that, and the process itself, the intent of the process or who it applies to has never changed. This was strictly an application update. So it was brought forward as a bylaw in the fall, and the reason for that was because this fee was attached to it. You know, as we found out with the other bylaw that was discussed, in order for the town to collect a fee, there has to be a bylaw supporting that. So that was the reason it was viewed as a housekeeping item. But there was so much opposition to it before town meeting that we ended up withdrawing it. It was never discussed on town meeting floor. We just decided we don't have time to educate people about what this really is. So it was withdrawn. Since then, we have an opinion from town council that we don't need the bylaw. His statement was that the board is fully within its rights to regulate activities within public roadways and lands. So where does that leave us? Special event permits are a baseline function of town and city operations. It's handled by staff and approved by the chief elected body or their designees. So it's not typically something that the public has input in, you know, whether it's the application or approving applications. There are some cities that have a committee that reviews these, but West Newbury is way too small to have that. However, I mean, when this was brought to town meeting, I did say that we would listen to people's comments because there was so much misinformation and controversy. So that's what tonight is for. However, we have very few people still here. It's our intent to update this application so that we can continue reviewing potential events. Right now we have a backlog of people that have run events annually that we have not been able to review because we've been holding off on this to try to get the situation resolved. So that's where we're at. Did I leave anything out, Chris, that you wanna add?
I'll add other stuff later on.
Okay,
Can I
so,
give one example? I think it's a good point. So for instance, this is the form that's up on the screen after location of temporary toilet facilities. As you know, when porta potties are brought in, which they often are for like a road race or something, this board will impose a requirement that it be removed within 24 hours after the event. I think every taxpayer in town will say, well, of course, that's great. Of course, we're glad you do that. So, but because it's not part of the form of when it will be removed, every single time
we have.
it comes before you, and so that's exactly the kinds of changes we want to have a form that says location, when it will be delivered, when it will be removed, just so it's in the form, so when it comes to you, it's a complete application. That's really all that's going on, so.
Yeah. So I'm willing to listen to any comments people have if they don't understand anything I've said, or they have concerns about the application as it's currently written, or the process. I guess it's the process.
Do you think it would be helpful to share the history of the last 5 years of what permits have been?
Let's see what the comments are.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I will say that typically it's the same events year after year. It's the Apple Harvest Road Race, it's the Garden Club plant sale event in May, a lot of ACTA events that are up at Pipe Save that impact traffic.
The UCAN sports, the
Yeah,
half
we have a lot
marathon,
of
5Ks.
half marathons and cycling races that come through town. So, yeah, those are the ones that are typically regulated. Yes,
Could you, Tom Ellis on Maple Street? Could you just clarify this, how does this impact like graduation parties and personal events? I think people have been concerned that you're telling us how to have a party and when to have a party. Can you please clarify that?
sure. So the way that the process is written, this is the old one, right?
This is the overhead.
Yeah, so what it says is, individuals or organizations wishing to hold events on public property or on private property that may have an impact on public property, such as roads, town parks. So we're not telling you how to run your graduation party, but if you have 200 cars parked on Maple Street, that's a problem. So that's what it's designed for. It's not designed to tell people how to do, you know, their event, but if they impact the public, then that's where it comes into play. And as far as I know, we've not had any private applications.
No, not in the 8 years I've been here. I mean, there's been events that are, I think, technically private. You know, some of these road races, people have to pay a fee to
But
jump,
on
but.
private property.
Right, no, I think the only one there was one with Near North, but they needed a 1-day liquor license, so they were before the board for that. And, but no, there's never been an instance I'm aware of like someone having a party on a private property and being required to go through this process.
So, just one more, but also, thank you, Edward. So about 8-9 years ago, we had a wedding on our property.
Mhm.
And we didn't fill out this. I was not aware of that, but I still own that responsibility.
Yeah.
But I did go to the police department, the previous chief. And nobody said anything about a permit, but I did say, hey, what's up? When do we need to turn off the music and stuff like that? But, and I'm not throwing the police under the bus. But was I supposed to fill out a permit for that 120 people?
If it was, 2000, you said 10 years ago, yeah, but I think, the town clerk's office and,
It's only if it was obstructing the road.
did you have people parking on the road?
But it was
No,
pretty hazard.
We had them all bused to,
Oh,
school
yeah,
property.
so, yeah,
Yeah, that wouldn't be.
You're not affecting town property.
Yeah, I mean, we had, there was another resident who came in, early this week with a similar anecdote of, an event they had. And, he said, I think he talked to Rebecca and he said, I talked to the chief and it's like, well, great, that's all, the
That's the
whole
point,
thing is
yeah.
just. Cause if someone had, 150 cars parked on Church Street and the town wasn't given a heads up and all of a sudden the chief's scrambling, cause, oh my God, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So if there's no issue and the chief is like, oh, it's no problem, then it's really, so it's like, yeah, in the last 5 years, there's been 78 of these. They're all like road race type things, and I think it also a very important point, in the 8 years I've been here, and I think it probably goes a lot longer, nothing's ever been denied.
Mhm.
The board has never denied a permit, it's really for things like, police detail, signage, porta potties, track. I mean, that's one thing with the road races, sometimes, and actually, I will say they seem to be really responsible and good. But I think there was an instance a number of years ago where like there were crushed cups, the water cups, and so the board will require that like they're responsible for cleaning up if they have a station where they're giving out water, that they're not gonna leave it with a bunch of litter on the side of the road. So it's really just management
yeah,
of the
so
public.
we're not
resource.
denying, but we may add conditions.
Exactly.
If you do this.
Yeah.
So, sure. Anybody online have a question or concern about this? Hopefully this addresses some of the, concern about it or misunderstanding. If not, the town clerk's office is happy to walk you through it. Feel free to send an email to the select board, email, and I can answer any questions you might have. So I think I would like to have the application in the next packet, Amanda, the new application. So, we don't have to formally approve it, but I would like to at least look at it and.
We would like to have you approve it,
Okay,
but
that's
yeah, I think it's,
Comments?
Sure.
So the first thing is, if this is being driven by requiring a fee, a very simple solution would be to say, if your application is not within 30 or 60 days, you don't get it.
Right.
So eliminate the fee and then you don't need the bylaw.
So that's what we've done de facto.
So let's just,
I didn't even know there was a fee. And
a late
this
fee,
was
I think
attached
with
to-
$100, if you don't apply within so many days. So just eliminate that clause, and if you don't apply within the time frame, you don't get the permit.
Right.
People will motivate themselves to do it. The second problem, I think there's a couple of issues that irritate the heck out of me. One is all the flack last fall and then nobody shows up here. They're happy to post on Facebook and tell us we're terrible, we should resign. And then they don't show up, which I find offensive, but the issue they had a problem with was public versus private, so I have a suggestion on changing the wording to appease them. And it's the definition that Wendy read. I would change it slightly to say a special event is defined as any planned gathering, celebration, performance, race, or activity that occurs on public property or otherwise causes impacts to the ordinary use of public streets, sidewalks, parks, fields, or facilities.
Yeah, we had a number of one of the people that were upset about this provided actual constructive specific comments, and I think that was one of them,
Yeah,
so.
well, that's how I changed the wording. You eliminate the
Yeah.
impression that they're trying to regulate on private property. You're not. They're saying, don't park cars on both sides of a small street during an event and cause havoc.
Mhm.
It's that simple. And as Angus said, we've been going through all these permits, because there was one road race that a resident made us aware of that they inadvertently or unintentionally blocked a cross street. Next time they came in, we said, you can't do that. So it's not people seem to think we're trying to rip their rights out. We're not. We're trying to make these events fun and pleasurable for everybody. Leave it at that.
Okay. So if we can approve the application at the next meeting, and then the people that are waiting, do you think they'll be okay with filling out the new application, just so we can have a fresh start?
We were told recently, the people that had filled out the new ones from the fall, couldn't, had to go back and fill out the old ones. We just had people, so if we just had someone submit like 10 on the old form. We want to stop them.
Do they, you still have the, well, I guess the new form's not approved yet.
I thought that was tonight.
Do we not approve it tonight?
Well,
They were included. I thought they
the
were
intent was not,
proposed.
that's not, it's not an action item, the intent is to get public input. We had this to that. So I didn't put it as an action item, but I'm clear that that's what we were gonna do. Yeah, well, we can talk offline about that, about how to manage this. But I mean, there are some problems with the old form that just makes it really difficult for us to, I mean, the two in the packet tonight, there were some missing things that I think were because the form is old, so. Okay. Next item is review on the solid waste and recyclable services, request for information, the draft.
And I have a hard copy of what I have sent around, so if you have comments or questions, I wanna make sure I keep up with that, because I wanna get any comments to Caitlin first thing tomorrow, so. So I have in front of me this draft addendum that I need on around. So I obviously, I left it out of the posted packet because it's a purchasing document, and until it's issued, it's not issued, so I didn't want to put it up on the web for, if there were changes to it.
Chris, did you have, I'm trying to pull mine.
There's some comments, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
The first one, it's on the original submittal for proposals, and it could float into the addendum or wherever. But obviously, I think not obviously, recently, there's been a lot of concern and question about the cardboard overflow at Christmas time, and people just very happy to go and throw it on the ground when the dumpster's full. So we think this would be a good opportunity to address having an additional dumpster there at that time of year to accommodate it. Or maybe it gets empty bi-weekly instead of weekly or whatever, I think.
What page are you on? This is on the first part of the, like the first page.
You can put it anywhere you want, so it talks about supply weekly maintenance, collection service for the town's recycling dumpsters, 4 located at Pipe State.
Could be seasonal, under D, seasonal, even Christmas tree. Could be
Yeah, but
that.
It could go anywhere you want, it could go in an addendum, part of the obligation would be to empty the cardboard dumpster bi-weekly or when notified by whoever, Brian, that it's overflowing.
Mhm.
Again, hard to believe people leave that mess, but they do. Then RFI, addendum number 2, item A3. And it occurs later on, same redundant question about the days of the week being Monday and Friday. And the response was potentially if you get a drastic reduction in cost, rather than that, say, please provide a deduct alternate pricing based on specific days.
Mhm.
So that way, if you could save $100,000 by doing it on Wednesday, I'm pretty much in with that, but just tell us what the days are. And, I think people can pretty well adjust easily, whether it's a Monday or a Wednesday.
I did have a question before you move on the advisory group. I had thought that I remember the select board was gonna be on that. Did we appoint you to do it, Angus?
No, you didn't, this is draft, this hasn't been
Okay.
issued, so I would love for that instead of me.
Yes, or you can, take. Let's see, who's the liaison for the Board of Health?
I think Monday is, we voted that last time to change.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was intentionally keeping it, to 3, just really out of deference to health, and they've managed this all these years. So I felt if there's 3 members, I wanted 2 of them to be health, that's my recommendation. If a select board member was the 3rd instead of me, I'd be delighted for
Yeah,
that.
I think that'd be good. since
I
we-
have no particular expertise on solid waste.
Okay.
I'll tell you something to his surprise, I didn't even know we had the bulk data pickup.
I didn't either. I thought we had to pay for that.
That's what we're told. It's very discreet in that little green thing. There's one line item, you have to call to make arrangements for bulk pickup. It used to be out of pay, now you don't. So. And then. That'll lead me to. Oh, I'm jumping around, sorry, did you have something in between?
No.
Yeah, item, question 10, answer, A10. It's not a great answer. They're asking for a specific quantity of carts in service. Don't say each resident has one plus 160, give them a number.
Give it up, yeah.
If the residents have 2,000, you have 2,160, that's a misleading answer that somebody could call you out on if they got the bid worth it.
Good, good catch, Chris.
Q14 and answer 14, it says 3 to 4 hauls of leaves dumpsters a year, but then when you go to A32, it says 10 to 15 times a year the leaf dumpster is empty. So you might wanna somewhere between 3 and 15.
That would be the same for both. Both answers, stay
Well,
consistent, right?
yeah, I mean, it's either 3 or 4, it's just 10 to 15, I don't know, there's a short cost impact to that. Question 18, and it's not relevant, significant, but I'm curious. It talks a breakdown of, single family houses, 2-family, 3 families, how they count it. My question is, how does an ADU get counted? Is that as a house or is it 2-family?
Interesting.
I mean, it doesn't matter, there's still 2 units, but I was just, it's a new subtlety to
Mhm.
going forward. Generally, what I've got. And if you want the hard copy, did you get them all?
Now I got them all.
Okay.
Did you have anything on the, oh, I guess this is their contract,
I don't particularly care about the contract at this point,
Right.
it's the
right?
proposal to look.
Yeah, that's attached to the addendum because it was requested, so.
It's not a bid matrix too, where they have to put all the, that's gonna be dicey to sort all that out at a certain point.
Well, one thing is, this is exempt from 30B, so it allows some flexibility in the procurement process and basically you can negotiate terms. It's unlike a formal bid where you,
Yeah, there'll just be a lot of numbers floating around, I'm trying to
Yeah.
find the chart right now, I don't see it, but
is that what this one here I've got up on the screen?
yeah.
Yeah.
To try and analyze all that, if 1 year, is one bid has got one number, it could get very curious.
So, I mean, this assumes that there is a vendor out there that could provide both hauling and disposal, right?
Mhm.
Collection and disposal, is that why? There's an alternate 1 and 2? In case one vendor only provides hauling, for example? I'm assuming that's why.
That seems to be how it's
Yeah.
set up, yeah.
I'm curious to see what the cost is of providing new barrels for everybody, and how significant that is.
Well, it does give the current vendor
Yeah,
a theoretical advantage, but
but did we already pay for that? I mean, it was worked into the
it's worked into their,
contract.
yeah,
Yeah.
amortized over their schedule.
Yeah,
Now, if they were unsuccessful in getting the contract and they were creative, they would sell the barrels to the new vendor.
right,
So,
Yeah.
not like it's lost money.
yeah.
Now, just a question and maybe you've got a lot of questions, obviously. Are there a number of different vendors asking these questions or just 1 or 2?
So Caitlin's handling all this. She does have a list on a shared server that she keeps of who the questions came from, but I haven't looked at that, so.
I'm curious because I don't know,
I'm, if you pop by tomorrow, next week, I'm happy to.
I won't be popping in anyway.
Give me a
I
call.
remember the last year at the State of the Schools thing, I believe it was. You probably remember because I pointed out to you afterwards. They put the
Oh,
bus
yes.
contract out for bid. And they got another bid up and all they did was drive down the existing bid. So they saved 500,000 a year. And they're thrilled that they saved 500,000. I looked at it as you were pretty well getting screwed for 500,000 a year for the past years. So it's, if you have a price check, you. So I hope This should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it keeps the current vendor honest, right?
Keeps them competitive too.
Yeah. Okay, so this is going out tomorrow?
Well, if there's any follow-up that Caitlin can't, it'll go out tomorrow or Monday. Yeah. Yeah, she might have to check with something with Paul, and I'm not sure if he's in tomorrow or what.
Okay.
To confirm, because you just wrote my comments are legitimate, okay?
They all sound great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, did we have council review it, or was that?
We did, yeah. Yeah, he didn't have anything, he did say, some towns do a more formal RFP with it's very prescriptive on, what you have to do, but, I talked with him, I told him, the decision here was more to get vendors to the table and talk about what services they offer. It's a little less bureaucratic, probably significantly less bureaucratic, so I should talk to him again earlier today, and I told him once there's like a form of contract, and I asked him actually, I said, if you have a recommended form of contract, that's something that's gonna be really, we'll have them very involved with that.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna say, that you invest the money is when you've got a contract.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I do know, we got a lot of, really good advice from the town of Groveland. They've been bidding out these services for years. They have a good approach. And so some of what you're seeing, I think, is similar to the documents they've used. The town administrator, Rebecca Oldham, spent some time with Caitlin. They met a number of times, and she was very helpful.
Great. All right, the next item about the website and digital accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot to this, and, I was a little, alarmist in my correspondence, but I stand by it. I really do think having gone to some of the trainings on this, and for everyone I've gone to, Rebecca in my office, they've gone to 4. And, I am very, very concerned that the outcome of this, not just here in West Newbury, but for a lot of communities, might result in a need to significantly strip content from the websites, because the requirements are not simply prospective, they're retroactive as well. And some of the specific requirements are incredibly unrealistic. Some of them are things that would require some additional incremental effort with every item posted, and those could be adapted to. They will affect time, because then it takes time. So for instance, if you have a photo, it's got to have a caption. That's something that I think could be worked in. The website, our platform already has that. When you upload a photo, it asks you to put a caption. We put a throwaway caption, just like house picture, but to make it truly compliant, it should describe what's in the photo. So that's a little extra work. One thing that is going to be, kind of personally bothersome to me, and I know to Elisa as well, because she and I have the same fondness for embedding hyperlinks and saying, oh, you can find this here, and here is a long hyperlink. That's not going to be allowed anymore. You're going to have to actually, you can find this at HTTPS, blah, blah, blah. That makes it, I think, more clunky to like the average reader, who I think embedding hyperlinks is an elegant way to share a lot of information. You see it, I do it all the time. And every single meeting packet has correspondences I've sent that probably, the one tonight's packet, how many embedded hyperlinks? I don't know, 1 dozen or 20 in one packet. That's all out of compliance with these new requirements.
Yeah, and
So-
what's the effective date of this?
February, is it February, April of next year, 2027.
Okay.
But one that I think is incredibly difficult is every video that's posted is going to need to have closed caption. Now, there are services that provide that,
Mhm.
and AI can do that, so that's potentially solvable. But the point is, every single thing about a public website will change and will be much more difficult. Anywhere from a bit more difficult to a lot more difficult to just completely impractical. So, or infeasible. So I'm deeply concerned about it. I know a lot of my counterparts are. This is not unique to Massachusetts. This is a nationwide. I have to assume that there's some attention being paid to the, I think it will have the opposite effect of improved transparency. I think it will make it it'll be there's gonna be a strong disincentive for communities like West Newbury. I mean, this packet tonight, 128 pages, chock full of great information, in my opinion. It's great for the residents. They can poke around, they can see how their government's working. We've got these packets posted going back to July of 2018. They can see every select board packet. There is no possible way. We would have to have dozens of staff to retrofit every one of those packets. I mean, it's like, you can't even comprehend. So what does that mean? That in order to comply, we're gonna have to strip all that content from our website. So I think it's one of the most horrible, unfunded mandates I've seen. I will say in terms of acceptability generally, as you know, from working with me, I'm a huge proponent. This town has made leaps and bounds in terms of physical accessibility and ADA compliance. We've been extremely proactive on that. And I will say, when I started, the town was already in good shape. It was not in bad shape, it was in good shape, but we've made leaps and bounds since then. You see the push button entry at the doors now. There's a lot of things, small and large, we've done to improve accessibility. I think that's great, but I think this, in my opinion, is counterproductive, but this is the law. I did get an unsolicited email from the state last week, saying, hey, where are you with this? Are you aware of the requirements? Is your website compliant? And it asked, is your plan to achieve compliance using in-house staff or an outside vendor? Rebecca went to a training earlier today on this very issue, and they are strongly recommending the state that communities engage vendors to make their sites compliant, because there is no way cities and towns have the staffing to do this. So I'm enormously concerned about it.
Did you get a response from Senator Tarr's office?
I did hear back from Rep Ramos, just earlier in the last few days. She said, she hadn't been aware of it, but she said she was gonna look into it further.
Okay. It just seems like so much busy work that's not really gonna improve accessibility.
Yeah. One other thing that Rebecca, she briefed Amanda and I this afternoon on one of the things that came out of the webinar she went to, is that there's a requirement to provide virtual attendance option at every single public meeting, including town meetings, upon request. You don't need to do it automatically, but just like right now, and for as long as I can remember, if someone requests, for instance, translation services, or if someone requests American Sign Language, we are legally obligated to provide that. We've known that for years. It doesn't have to come up, but if it did, we would have to, and we would. It's the same kind of thing. It's request driven. It's not automatic. But the point is, if someone made a request that they wanted to be able to attend town meeting, but they were not able to be there, or they had, we would have to provide under the, ADA, we would have to provide a virtual attendance option, not a virtual voting option, was how she described it to us. So did I get that about right?
Yeah, I just walked in and I think that is what she said, not
Yeah.
voting, but.
Right. Yeah.
So just town meeting, not like.
All
voting?
public meetings.
So this is, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't want to overreact to that one because it's request driven.
Yeah.
And we would, if someone made a request, whether the law does so or not, I would make every effort to make sure they could participate. So I'm not so concerned about that, but the website I'm very concerned about.
Yeah.
And I will just speak frankly, in this climate we're in right now, particularly in West Newbury, where there does seem to be some amount of mistrust, which I truly do not understand, because all we do is toward the public interest. Every single thing this board does, single thing my office does, is driven by what is best for the town of West Newbury. People can agree or disagree on what that is, But in terms of people's motivation, it is purely good government. I mean, that's just what we do. And so some of what I hear on Facebook or that's directed to us personally, I really have a hard time understanding truly. So you take something like this, let's say to achieve compliance, we got to strip 80% of the content off our website. Obviously, people will say, oh my God, they're depriving us of all this information. They're being less transparent. We didn't write this law. This is a federal mandate. And unless the town wants to add, you know, several dozen additional staff people to do nothing but retrofit the thousands and thousands of documents on our website, then I don't see another path.
Yeah.
Unless the feds change this sometime before the effective date.
I mean, at least just require it going forward and not
Right.
going back. I mean, that's still challenging, but not as.
Right,
Yeah.
and one little example, and Amanda's office has already made this adjustment, is some agendas, you know, had continued to go in with like the signature of the chair, like Concom, it was signed. They've done away with that because, right, you can't have that. You can't have someone's, because that won't convert to something that someone can read
Yeah.
on, you know,
It has to do with the type of PDF, like, we're not allowed to put anything on the website now that's not like a searchable, readable PDF.
right.
So Rebecca came in my office today with like a scan of something I had scanned, and she's like, we have to figure out a different way to get this on the website. It gave it to me in person, I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, so for example, I mean, just take within tonight's packet, when I create PDFs, I tend to write a Word document or Excel document, I print the PDF. And so you can still highlight and copy and paste from that because I exported it directly from Word. If I take a piece of paper and scan it, unless I run it through OCR, that is going to be a flat image file that you can't search from. That is not going to be allowed.
And that's what most of the stuff on the website.
And our website and the way I do things personally, I think I mean, I love PDF, I love Acrobat, I'm very, most of my work product, I'm doing that way already, that's just because how I do things, but that's not how most people do things. And so like health department's a great example, you've seen their budget documents over the years, they're always scanned documents. And they're always kind of chunky with like spreadsheets and they're scanned and they're low resolution and but that's how they do things. And I'm gonna have to be the big bad manager to say, you can't do that anymore. And I'll be the bad guy.
This is on the website you're just updating now, that's gonna be obsolete next year.
No, because the new website platform is gonna have some things that are facilitating,
But
like,
you have to peel off all your old videos, that's what, I mean, it's just
Right.
a lot of work that's gonna then just erase next year.
correct. Yeah, no, this is one of the, I mean, I get really it's so bad.
Now, you said on videos they have to have closed caption.
Yes,
I don't know the technical definition of closed caption, but in YouTube, you drop down, you hit it, and the word's just right in the,
Right.
it's right there, so it's already embedded.
right, yeah, there's things that you can do, so, but for like the prior videos, I think you'd have to run them through. Because I think we have to provide it, it's not that someone,
It goes back almost as long as I've been on select board, because I went in once when we had a problem with the minutes, and I brought up the video and I tapped the thing and it has.
but you had to tap the thing, I think the burden's on us.
They can use my finger thing, you know.
Anyhow, so, well, but yeah, I do think the closed captioning is a solvable issue because of technology.
Well, obviously, the technology and the people in the industry will catch up to it once they can monetize it, so we will have
Mhm,
some kind of system that comes, we can do this for you for X amount of dollars.
yeah.
No.
So as we, when we get into the very next item on the agenda, and FY27 budgeting, that is one thing I was just gonna float and say, sitting here right now with a budget due a week from tonight, I'm not carrying anything in my proposed budget to engage a consultant to help us with this. And we can talk about that more next
I think
week.
that'll be a warrant article. It's like a one-time thing, right?
Well, I think it'd be a one-time thing to retrofit.
Yeah.
I do think if they enforce this thing going forward, I think this is gonna have significant impacts on administrative staffing going forward. Because I do not think, I mean, you take our office, the four of us with Amanda, Max, myself and Rebecca. We are stretched to the limit every hour of every day. We have multiple people within our office working more than full-time hours. in my case, way more than full-time hours already. So you add something that's gonna add hours of work every week, there is no one to do that work.
Yeah,
That's, you know, I think our office is exceptionally busy, but there's other offices in the town that are comparably busy. You know, certainly Chief Dwyer, he's been without an admin for several months now.
yeah.
They don't do a lot with their website, but,
Well, I would like to think that between now and the deadline, somebody will come to their senses and, you know, modify the
someone
requirement.
in Washington is gonna come to their senses.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Wish me.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, all right, let's move on to the budget, policy direction.
So I just had a couple of issues. I just wanted to kind of float, just some of the kind of things I'm chewing on. We talked about the ADA Title II. One thing we'll talk about with FinCom, and I always put this last on the, calendar, is the amount in the reserve fund. I think that's something that needs to be looked at every single year. That really is the only true contingency in the entire operating budget, so, we'll put that late, but that's something I want you to think about, and I don't want your board or the FinCom to just take, oh, well, what was last year's number? Like, we really need to think about risk factors or even things like this. I mean, what if it gets to October, November, we're like, the deadline's coming, the state's breathing down our neck, we can't possibly do it, maybe we gotta bring in a vendor, even if we didn't, you know. Anyhow, so reserve fund, the next one I have, a select board professional technical services, we budgeted that consistently at 10,000. That's been a really important resource for when things come up. I know last fiscal year, we had some property survey work done, that we hadn't anticipated, and it was nice to be able to, you know, have the couple of thousand we needed. It's been used for those kinds of things. This year, we had to engage the surveyor on the MBTA. We had an article, so we were able to hit that. But there's those kinds of things that come up this year. The board is intending to use that toward the organizational study. But that 10,000 has always been kind of the board's, like, it's there if you need it. So I want you thinking between now and next week, you know, this is your section of the budget. Do you guys want to keep that at 10? Do you want to do something different? If there's something specific that you feel you might want to take on in fiscal 27, that's not a warrant article, do you want to carry that in there? So I want you to think about that number, because left in my own devices, I'll just put forward 10K again.
Yeah.
So if there's a reason to do anything other than that, you can tell me that. Let's see. I think you're both aware we've, the Council on Aging Director we're retiring, as of May 1st. We posted that position. We're very, sorry to see her go. Very happy for her on the circumstances of why she's leaving and her grown, you know, family, and grandmother. She's delighted and excited for what's next. She's been looking toward retirement for her whole career, just like a lot of people do. So very happy for her. But with her leaving May 1st, we have posted the job, and we have posted it with a deadline that our goal is to get someone new in ideally 2 weeks before Christine leaves on May 1st. Fingers crossed. My one thing I'm chewing on, and I've talked with her about, Jenny and I met with her to talk about, is if she was willing, you know, to provide some support through a transition period, for instance, of something like the newsletter, where she's raised the level of that newsletter so significantly during her tenure, and maybe we hire someone with comparable desktop publishing skills, but maybe we don't, or maybe we have someone it's gonna take them a while to learn. I really don't want residents and, you know, just to perceive a drop off in level of service because we have a personnel change. So that's something, you know, I'm working on a proposal to increase probably the staffing budget, probably not the expense budget, so that if Christine was willing to stay on after May 1st on an ultra part-time to help, say, with the newsletter, I think we would benefit from having that resource. So I'm gonna have something in my budget a week from tonight. You can, you know, review it, take it out or whatever, but I wanted to just give you a preview. I'm, you know, thinking of that transition, and we're such a small department with just 2 staff. I'm thinking about that.
Okay.
Similar, this is more prospective than immediate, is finance department. We know the town accountant has set her retirement date. It's a little less than 2 years from now, so that's going to be in the first half of fiscal 28. I think those of us who work with Jenny know she does the work of, you know, she carries a lot on her shoulders. She does an incredible amount of work, incredible quantity of work, and is really like an enormously valuable resource. So as I look ahead to that transition plan, do we want to think about anything within the FY27 staffing to start to, you know, perhaps move toward an assistant town accountant to have like a continuity of operations plan, so it's not just, because to be very frank, we're not going to find somebody who does what she does. We're just not. So that's a ways down the road, but the accounting position is so critical to the day-to-day operations of the town and how smooth things run in the finance department. So I don't have a concept. I just want to let you know I'm chewing on it. Let's see. Project management, that's one thing. Obviously, we have a vacancy right now, and we've shifted that budgeted amount to the HR manager, which we've posted that job. I know when the board set that direction, I said I'm not taking off the table. I might propose a project manager position. So I think whether I do that or whether I propose something in a different section of the budget to carry some of that capacity. I think if we don't fund that, that's fine if that's what the town wants, but it's got to be eyes wide open, because that has been, prior to Christine's departure, that had been a contributing position for 3 full years. And prior to that, Wayne and I were doing comparable work, but he and I were both working 65 hours a week, so it really wasn't sustainable. So there is an expectation in the community of a lot of these projects that you see. People expect those to get done. If we don't have a staffing structure to support that, those things increasingly will kind of like fall off the table. So like I said, initially, if that's a conscious decision the town makes as a matter of policy, that's fine. I just don't want to sneak up on someone. So one way or the other, I'd like to include something in my proposed budget on the project management capability, and whether that survives the process or not, we'll see, but I definitely think it needs to be on the table to be intentional about.
So what kinds of projects are you looking for that position to manage? Things that like conservation agent and town planner can't do, or in addition to those?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think some of the obvious examples are these crossing, you know, Main Street crosswalk improvements. Everyone, there's survey, there's concept plan, 25%, 75%. There's managing the consultant, managing the permitting process, managing the public process, and to be honest, when I was a town planner early in my career in 01 to 05, I was doing those things. So there are some town planners who do that and are perfectly comfortable facilitating, room with 50 people, including sometimes with some contentious issues, and building consensus. There are some town planners who have that skill. Right now, our planning position is budgeted at 28 hours a week. So I think, here in West Newbury, that's really been consumed by running the planning department and the permitting. So I think here in West Newbury, the planning function has been more of a permitting planner. It's not been really like a facilitation project management type planner. There are planners in the field who do that, but right now we're not structured for that. As far as conservation, I have met a number of times with the agent and with the chair, and their feeling right now, and I agree with this, is where, you know, we have an agent who's still fairly new and still on the learning curve with some issues. He's doing a great job, highly capable person, tremendous background, but, you know, this is his first local government job, so obviously there's some learning curve issues. He hasn't been through his first spring, summer season of permitting, inspections, construction, you know, enforcement. And with the invasive land stewards and getting those jobs posted, interviewing, screening, training, onboarding, oversight. I feel, and I think Molly feels, and the commission feels that, you know, they don't want to over commit him because, well, right now in the dead of winter, you know, he's been helpful to us on some projects, whether invasives or the River Road DER transitional cover. You know, he's engaged with all of that and more, but there's not the sense that they want him taking on like a project to manage, because their concern is that once spring hits and the construction season hits and the interns, he's gonna be super busy, because that's how it goes up there. So I told him I'm supportive of that, and that I think, you know, maybe like next fall, September, October, after he's been through a full year, he'll have a better idea of his bandwidth, but we don't want him like committing to something now and then finding that he can't keep up with that once the construction season hits. So in my experience, I haven't seen conservation agents in other towns really managing projects. Another example is some of the improvements that I know a lot of people would like to see to some of the walking trails, whether that's getting boardwalks permitted, constructed. That's a significant project management issue. You know, if we're gonna do that stuff, we're gonna need someone to manage that work.
Wouldn't that fall? I mean, he's also the land agent, right? Wouldn't that fall within?
He would,
Yeah.
I mean, it would, but
Once he's ready.
well, but it's also, I mean, you know, you're an engineer,
Mhm.
you know, preparing the spec, you know, to engage, you know, getting the like, that's something you could do. I don't know if every conservation agent has that, like there's a certain skill set, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that maybe once a vendor's under contract and the scope is clear and the timeline's clear, maybe they manage that contract, they ought to be able to. But some of the work of how, whether a project goes smoothly or not, has a lot to do with, was it scoped properly, was the budget proper? And that's stuff that is, I mean, you know, people learn over time. So if
Okay.
he's expressed interest in that,
Yeah.
but he's also said, I've never done that.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt of his capacity to learn, but he's never done that.
Okay.
And then, let's see. I guess the final one, because I always save the,
I have a couple too. so-
okay, great. It's more on that side of, like salary wages. There's a number of, specific instances where I'm being approached or have been approached about grade classification or steps, and, so I don't know within the budgeting process. I mean, we budget based on projected staffing at projected rates and so forth, but the salary wage schedule isn't voted till after the budget. So what is gonna be the right process or timing to bring any of those forward for discussion? Or is it like next year, or the budget year?
I mean, that was one of the items I wanted to talk about. I mean, I don't think grade changes are based on the job spec. That has nothing to do with budgeting.
Mm.
So I don't think it's appropriate for departments to put forward a grade change for an employee now as part of the budget process. I also feel that step changes is a performance-based
Mhm.
increase, and that should also be part of the performance evaluation process. So my inclination is to say that none of that is associated with budgeting. You know, it should come out of the performance evaluation, and then the following year, there would be a change in the budget based on that. And I don't know how you feel about it, Chris. I mean, unless we approve the merit increases like we did 2 years ago, we haven't talked about doing that.
Yeah.
But that would still be performance-based, not. But I'm only one person, that's my view, having worked so hard on that wage and classification study, I hate to see it just, abandoned.
I feel like it is getting eroded every time we have one of these issues.
Mhm.
What if, just theoretically, what if there was a change to someone's responsibility for?
I think that's appropriate, but why is it coming up now as part of the budget and not as part of the performance evaluation? To me, that just muddies the whole discussion. I think the departments that are putting forward requests are. Maybe they're not clear on, what it means to be a certain grade. I mean, I think it's so important that we keep consistency in the grades that we set up.
Yeah.
I just think there's too much going on with the budget to try to also be looking at positions and
It is
having
very
responsibilities.
difficult.
It's
Yeah.
just, it
Yeah.
should come in August or
Yep.
whenever that's my opinion. What do you think, Chris?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
okay.
All right.
My other one was, I guess, a question, last year, some of the small committee budgets, we had put at 0 and then there was money in your budget, or it's not a separate line item, but the assumption was if committees needed stuff, they would come to you. And
Yep.
I'm just wondering if you're planning on doing the same thing this year, or whether that's changed.
So I did receive proposed budgets from both Mill Pond Committee and Open Space Committee.
Mhm.
I'm still working to put together my overall budget. The budget I present, as it does every year, will show both what I'm proposing and what I receive from the, board committee departments. So if I receive a proposal, whether I carry it forward my budget or not, you will see that it was proposed.
Mhm.
So that'd be a discussion point either way.
Okay.
In terms of, I think more directly to your point, if those committees or any committees contacted my office and said, oh, we're trying to do this, and is there any money? Typically, the type of request is, on the order of $100 or a couple $100. Typically, I mean, my office is really creative, and we can always, I shouldn't say always, quote me. We generally, if it's like small dollars like that, we can generally find the resource, whether that's in the town manager expense budget. So for instance, the event last week with Greenbelt, it was a very modest expense for the food. I think, and Open Space had contacted me last August. I said, yeah, absolutely. And they wanted it recorded. That was great. We paid that out of PEG for Adam's time. So, we can provide support on things that are not specifically budgeted if it's small dollar things. If once it gets into big, or let's say a member of, I won't name it, some committee said, oh, there's this training out in Worcester I really want to go to. We don't have an expense budget, can I get reimbursed for mileage? Absolutely, no problem. Like, it just like with the reimbursement policy we have on the website, as long as there's advance approval to go take that trip and they put in their mileage, we'll pay them reimbursement. We're not looking for people to, they're already volunteering their time. We're not looking for them to, like, a lot of people would go to that and not even think about it, but if it is an issue for someone, by all means, I'd pay that out of the town manager expense budget. It wouldn't be a problem, so.
Well, couldn't there be just a line item for committee support? I mean, instead of, because now we have the ag committee that's gonna be putting a budget in for small dollar stuff. I just,
Are they gonna be putting up?
that's what they were talking about at the last meeting.
Okay, the deadline to receive budgets has passed, so.
Yeah, okay,
Grant, I get 120 emails a day, so late this season, so
Yeah.
maybe, but if something came in from Rich, I'm sure I would have seen it, but I haven't, I don't believe I've received it yet.
Okay.
So.
I just feel like that, if there was a specific
Yeah,
line, that would make them confident that, yes, there is.
I wish there was. I had that very conversation with Jenny last year.
Okay,
And so it's a good thing to have with her because she will speak to it more specifically, but what she basically said, there's this, like
Mhm.
chart of accounts, standard accounting structure across the Commonwealth. And so, from an accounting standpoint, if it's going toward this committee, like it really should be accounted for. I look at the town manager budget as kind of a more of an umbrella. Where, there was an instance, maybe a year or two ago, I think when Rick was on the board, he wanted to go to an energy conference in Worcester. And he put it for mileage and we paid that, well, he was on the board, but that'd be a good example, he's on the energy committee. I would feel totally comfortable, to pay your mileage. I think Jenny might have heartburn. Having like a generalized committee. I had that exact conversation with her,
Just a thought,
but it was just a conversation. I can have her like,
because we have the CCRC and, we have a tree committee, there's a
Yeah.
lot of small committees
Yeah.
that it's not.
well, on the tree committee, this was really by kind of, I'll say informal agreement, although it was all talked about in public meetings, so it wasn't like hidden, but back when that committee was established, they brought forward a proposed budget. Wayne was the director at the time, and, I was at a point where, our budget has like, I think it's okay now, but when I started, it had too many lines. I wasn't looking to add lines, cause so what we worked out was that if there's reasonable expenses that they have, that they would get their budget to DPW, who's then carried an amount. It's still within the DPW expenses, but it's in the budget document, so they do submit a budget to DPW and it's carried in there. That's kind of like, it was kind of like an informal agreement, but that is how we've done it consistently.
Yeah, well, I guess that would be similar to all these other committees that would be carried under the town manager budget.
Yeah, I mean, I could earmark a part of my budget so that there's a certain amount specifically kind of earmarked for committee events, committee travel and training.
Yeah, just a thought, I mean, the other thing I'm concerned about is using the budget as a way to do a work run on the work plan.
Mhm.
If projects that aren't supposed to be worked on until FY 27 or later are
Mhm.
now being budgeted for this year, that's a problem.
Mhm.
Any budget policy direction from you, Mr. Wild? No. Okay. Any questions on the correspondence? Okay. Future agenda items? All right, hearing none, I move to recess to executive session, in accordance with MGL chapter 30A, section 21A2, 3, 6, and 7.
Second,
All in favor, read aye.
while I.
All right, the board will reconvene in open session for the after executive session for the sole purpose of adjournment. Good night.